everybody, what's up? Prowl in the house. How we doing today? Hopefully everything's gonna be working okay. I'm switched over to working on the oh wow, why is this thing so high? I'm gonna adjust that while I talk. I'm switched over to streaming from the gaming PC because I'm going to be doing some recording while we're streaming today. And there's the volume knob I was looking for. No, not that one. There's the volume. This one I was looking for. And of course now I'm getting echo. And I don't know where it's coming from. There it is. All right. Perfect. It's just a little loud. So, like I was saying, we're streaming from the gaming PC today, not from the stream PC, because we're going to be doing some recording today. And specifically what we're going to be working with today is some reaction content. It's not something I've really delved into that much, but it's something where I always feel like I want to do it because a lot of you guys, PDF, Trinity, Angel, Heen, Jaden, Roos, Lil Spoon, Denzel, Roos, you guys know me. I'm very opinionated. I try to be very constructive and thoughtful and educational or whatever, however you want to say it with my opinions, but I have opinions about lots of things. So I always feel like I want to get them off my chest. I want to oh gosh, where do I go on this page? Here. I always want to share them, but I never really have a good avenue to do it other than like sometimes like random, like kind of like interrupted rants during gameplay. So this will give me a more structured place to do this and talk to you guys about it. I'm a little unsure exactly how this is going to be cut into video form, but it will be cut into video form nonetheless. That's the goal anyways. Okay. Oh, I need to change bit rate here on the app. Hold on a second. Output. Let's lower stream bit rate down to like 6,000. See if that does the trick. Makes YouTube stop yelling at me. You rant all the time. I do, but my rants are usually very discombobulated messes. And I would like it to be a little more formulated. Maybe would be the right term to use. I don't know. So we're going to be looking at a few different larger respected creators and their reviews and their thoughts of Diablo 4. And I'm going to react to that. I'm going to give my opinions of the things they're talking about and my opinion of what their opinions are. I've watched a number of these over the last several days. I would say a lot of them, for the most part, I agree with or have like partial agreement to. Some of them I agree with from the perspective they're coming from. And I think you're going to see perspective during this is going to be really big because a lot of these guys, their perspective is from a point of view of somebody that is very heavy in the ARPG category. Somebody that mains that category. Somebody that has played thousands of hours of Diablo 2, Diablo 3, and other ARPG games. And I think it's important to like pull back from that for my commentary because that's not me and that's not going to be what I think is going to be the largest portion of the player base. That's going to be the super hardcore player base. And maybe I'll comment on that some too, but it's not going to be the largest percentage of the player base, if that makes sense. Yeah, PDF, you know, I've almost started to do that because like I've watched a few like Asmongold clips and Reforged Gaming as well. Well, they'll comment about somebody else's comment. Oh, my wife just asked me a question. Hold on, give me 2 seconds, I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. Also, let me turn my ringer off so like notifications and stuff don't come through as we are chatting. I'll give my opinions on the person giving their opinions on it. Okay, guys, stop trolling. Stop trolling. Okay, so first things first, let's go to I guess I'll go to what I have set up as my new scene here for reactions, and then I'll switch that here too. And actually I need to link this to reactions. I'm like capturing this in vertical format as well, just in case I want to like snip anything to go to like a short form. Okay. Might as well tell us to stop breathing while you're at it. Geez, here are my opinions. Opinions are opinions. Oh my gosh, you guys are terrible. Okay, so like before we like formally jump into this, like have any of you guys in here been consuming any other Diablo 4 content, whether it be gameplay, whether it be reviews, guides, looking up just like general tips of, you know, whatever different things, right? Like whatever it is. Have any of you been consuming any additional Diablo 4 content? And then also, while I have you guys put that in here, you know what opinions are like, right? Yeah, I know, Ryan, but mine don't stink. Okay. So, I've kind of explained this already. We talked about it yesterday during stream, but we have started a new. Wouldn't that be cheating? Wait, what? Would what be cheating? But I was gonna say also, I have started the new Diablo 4 channel. I got some channel art that I'm having worked up for it now. Then that'll be up hopefully pretty soon. The plan is to release all shorts on the Diablo 4 channel. We're going to cut these portions down where we react to other people's reviews and opinions and thoughts of Diablo 4, and we're going to put that in video form as well. They'll probably be pretty longer videos, but we'll still do it. We'll put those in video form, and we will put those on the channel. And then of course I'll be doing guides, maybe tier lists, and other like miscellaneous Diablo 4 related things that'll go on that Diablo 4 channel as well. All Diablo 4 streaming will still happen here. Check out the, if you want to pull the link, check out the Discord. I posted it in an announcement in the Discord today. Seeing someone else's content, wouldn't that be cheating? What does that mean? Wouldn't that be cheating? ESO creator, I've watched Lucky Ghost, our Diablo 4 channel as well. I haven't heard of them. That's about it for others content I've consumed. Random question. I'm guessing someone in blue can answer this. I enjoy both this and Prowl's Minecraft channel. I want to sub, but can't afford to do both. Yeah, I mean, the Minecraft channel gets you access to the Minecraft Discord. I mean, the Minecraft members only Discord and the like the members only servers. Whereas the gaming channel will get you more direct access to like being a voice chat during like community game nights and like the back room like channels and stuff there. So a little bit different. Just kind of depends on like where your enjoyment is in terms of playing the game. All right. So I want to try to think of this from a maybe open this in a video form. So I have a definitive open point for this. So I think that's what we're going to do. I don't really know how to open it. And I feel like I want to put caveats in about my perspective too, although maybe it'll come out while we talk. So I'm not really quite sure. I guess my plan is like, we'll kind of like talk about and react to different parts of what Asmongold says. I'll try to like let him get the full thought out of what he's saying before I react to it, except for maybe some small interjections while he's talking. And then after I kind of have my thought and reaction to it, I'll probably take a look at chat and see if you guys have any additional opinions as well, or thoughts or anything of that nature. And I think that's how we'll do it. So first thing we're going to react to is Asmongold here. Now I want to add the context that this was 8 days ago, I think. Yeah, this is 8 days ago. So this was after he played the early preview beta, but before he had played the open beta that was open to all, that added in the Necromancer and the Druid. And he has a lot of reaction comment to other people's reviews that are actually really good, and I enjoyed a lot of them, and they're very even-handed. But this was one that I found from him that is just like him collecting his thoughts and putting them out there. And yeah, so let's go ahead and let's give it a watch, and let's kind of talk about it from the perspective of somebody that's not a, 5-day-a-week, 7-day-a-week ARPG player.
Diablo IV. Everybody's been playing it. Everybody's been talking about it. Today, I'm going to talk about it. I've played the beta now for a few days. I've looked into the game. I've gotten 2 characters to the max level, and I've no-lifed at least one of them to where they have pretty much full legendary gear that's almost completely upgraded too. So I wanted to give my thoughts on, in general, the first impressions of the game, and just talk about Diablo IV. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, I used to be a huge fan of Diablo 3. I was like the guy, like I bought the game by, actually that's not true, I signed my dad up for the WoW annual pass that actually caused a problem with him changing his credit card that he got really mad at me for, and the annual pass included Diablo 3. So that's how I actually got Diablo 3. But anyway, so I got Diablo 3, I played it all night long, and I got to 60, I killed Inferno Diablo, I even killed Hardcore Inferno Diablo, way after Kripparian, by the way. It's not as impressive as you'd think. But anyway, I did all that stuff, I got the Paragon 100, I absolutely loved Diablo 3. I had so much fun playing the game. And then Reaper of Souls came out, and I actually had a lot less fun. And so I moved away. I stopped playing Diablo 3 for a very long period of time, played a lot of Path of Exile, did a couple of other ARPGs, learned the error of my ways, went back to Path of Exile, and now I'm playing Diablo 4. So where does the game rank compared?
So just a short on my background of Diablo. I'm a long time ago ARPG player. I started with Diablo 1 when it first came out in, I think, like 1996, or was it 98? Somewhere right around there. I played Diablo 2 when it first came out. Diablo 2 I played pretty extensively. I played for a couple years, just grinding, mostly solo play on that. And then fast forward many years later, Diablo 3 comes out. I played and beat that right when it came out. That was really my extent of Diablo 3. I thought it was fun. Never played Path of Exile. And like really from there, I've really been absent from the ARPG category for many years. And Diablo 4 has piqued my interest. And I've liked a lot of things that I've seen about it, and it's kind of brought that nostalgia back and it's sucked me back in. We've played the preview beta and the open beta, and we got 3 characters to 25. No, I got a sorcerer and a necromancer. No, a sorcerer and a barbarian to 25, a necro to 20, and a rogue to 16 or something like that. So that's kind of where I stand in my gameplay in Diablo 4.
Compared to other ARPGs? Is it as complex as Path of Exile? I think the answer to that is no, and I think that is an intentional no. I don't think that it should be as complex as as Path of Exile. Diablo 4 is in general a much more simplified version of PoE. Like, for example, whenever you were playing a Necromancer in PoE, if you want to change from carrion golems to skeletons, you've got to completely, reorient 17 different skill gems, 3 different talent choices, your ascendancy, and then also your enchants on your gear, and then like your corruptions and like all kinds.
We're going to increase stuff, right? Playback speed.
But with Diablo, there's a button that says, I thought that was a wasp, but it was just one of those stupid things. And there's a button that says, like zombies or skeletons, and you just go click, and it's done. So how much longevity is that going
to? His is lower. Hold I don't know how good of a native way I have to boost that. I can throw a little bit of gain at it. Let me see what this does.
Gonna have. I don't know. I think that's one of my biggest concerns with Diablo 4, really, is that the game has like a surprising amount of simplicity to it. And I do understand the silliness in saying that to an extent because the beta only goes up to level 25. However, I've played Diablo 3 before, many, many times, thousands of hours, and I don't really see a lot of complexity in that game either. I don't really see a whole lot of new systems happening in Diablo 4 that's going to be transformative to that in a way that's different for players. Like, I think that you're obviously going to have people that are, they're going to play it and theory craft it, etc. But like, how deep does that theory crafting go? And I think there's a very interesting middle ground that I'm not sure if Diablo 4 is going to be able to.
So here we're talking about the complexity of Diablo 4 versus prior Diablo games, or even comparing to Path of Exile. Well, I haven't played Path of Exile. A lot of these guys that are well respected in the community, like Asmongold and others, they refer to it, and I kind of got a decent feel of it. And my opinion here, and we'll elaborate on it as we go, is it mimics a little bit of what Asmongold is going to say. It has said so far, but it's going to go a little bit further because there's the complexity of a game is a two-edged sword. If you make the game too complex and have too much depth to it, you're going to scare people away. It's going to feel intimidating and people aren't going to want to play it. That's kind of what a lot of people say about Path of Exile. It's really for that hardcore ARPG player that lives and breathes the genre and wants to put in the time to learn, right? But on the other hand, if you don't have enough complexity, you end up in a situation where the game maybe starts out fun at first and then it falls off. I could say this from my experience of playing, a little bit of Minecraft Dungeons, which was there like dipping their toe into the ARPG category. It was kind of fun, slaying tons of mobs at first, but there's no character depth and no depth to really any kind of skills at all in the game. And it just gets flat really quick. PoE is free on Xbox Game Pass. You want to try it out? I really don't. From everything I've heard, it's a very unforgiving game. If you don't follow a whole bunch of guides, tutorials, etc. to a T, and you have to sink a ton of time into it to have any sort of understanding. So I'll definitely stay away. And if I could have any kind of Twitch moderators, please keep an eye on Twitch chat. We'll have people pop in like this idiot that wants to talk trash just coming into the stream instead of giving anything constructive.
Really capitalize on, which is the middle ground that it is complex enough for it to be fulfilling for people to overcome the complexities, but simultaneously not as complex.
That's what I just said.
To the point to where it is just completely impenetrable for a new person. Any new person coming into Path of Exile, I tell them follow your build guide down to a T, deviate a couple of times, realize the error of your ways, then go back to the build guide because it's just so complex and so hard to understand. So Diablo 4, I think that really has to hit that sweet spot in between boring levels of just repetitive gameplay that's mindless and effortless with no real investment put into it, and then also not simultaneously be too complex to where people don't understand it, like PoE. And I do think that complexity is not necessarily always a good thing. There's a lot of people online that, well, the more complex game and the harder game is always the better game. Not necessarily. And I want to draw a correlation, and it's an ironic correlation, but I think it's very true, between two old games, Diablo 2 and Gauntlet. How many of you guys played Gauntlet Legends? You played Gauntlet over on the old arcade machine, Red Wizard shot the food. That was me, by the way. And, you just kind of did all that kind of stuff. You love Gauntlet. You played maybe Gauntlet. You played, Diablo 2. I didn't play Diablo 2. And Gauntlet was a great game. In my mind, I think that Diablo 4 should be Gauntlet and Path of Exile can be D2. There's nothing wrong with being a simpler, easier to understand, more accessible version of a type of game. And I really hope that's what Diablo 4 can do. And
I think so far it's doing that, but I think I guess this is one of those areas where it really depends on perspective, because if you're the type of person that's been playing a ton of Path of Exile, you've played these other games in the genre, you've lived and breathed Diablo 2, Diablo 3, etc., your expectation of what is complex, what is a detail oriented system that has like all these different segments to it is going to be a little bit different than what other people's is, right? And I think where you get to the point where you have a game that strikes that balance is not always in how many of these different systems of customization, skills, stats, etc. do you have. It's also how and when they're implemented and shown to the player, right? So and I guess the impact that they have on regular everyday gameplay versus a more maximalist or competitive style gameplay. Okay, so like in Diablo 4, for example, you have a lot of layers to things, but you have your essential skill system, you have upgrades to those individual skills in the form of just adding additional stat points to them, and then you have upgrades to those skills in terms of like adding additional effects to those skills and decisions you make within these little branches on the skill tree. You have the added complexity of a lot of these skills will cause different status effects and things to happen to mobs and to mobs in the game as well. Things like vulnerable and overpower and like what is it called? Like a shield effect to yourself. I can't remember what it's called. Terminology is escaping me. But you have like all of these different like status effects and ailments, right? And then as you go up the skill tree, whether they be things that are directly related to that skill, like within the same path, think like ice skills for an ice for a sorcerer, for example, versus fire or electric. What you end up having is like you have different skills that will do bonus damage to something with a status effect. So that adds a small level of complexity, right? And then from there, you add in the complexity of gear. Gear can give you bonus damage to close up or far away enemies. Gear can give you bonus damage to a certain type of status effect. It can give you bonus damage to a specific skill that you have. It can add extra points to that skill. It can make that skill do something new that it didn't do before. So we add in that next layer of complexity. Then you have legendary items and the what are they called? The little rune things that you get from the affixes that you can earn from like completing dungeons and stuff. Then you get those. Then you add in the complexity of, well, I can take those and add them to any piece of gear that I want. That adds another layer. And then we're not even into endgame stuff yet, where you're talking even more so about paragon levels and things of that effect. So you continually add on all of these things, and you don't have to master all of them to go through the game and enjoy it and have fun. But if you do master them, you end up with a character that's far more powerful, that has an easier time rolling through the game. It's more fun because you're causing more destruction, and can even compete in a more competitive environment where you do better at fighting some of these really hard challenges, world bosses, strongholds, whatever, right? The game is seemingly going to get harder as you go. We've only played Act 1. What's Act 2, 3, and 4 going to look like? There's PvP. There's all these different things. So these added levels of complexity to what a character can or should be will enhance the experience of the game as you go, but they aren't so critically important that you can just sort of like just throw points at stuff and still just play the game and have fun and like make it through. You know what I mean? You see what chat says. I want simplicity for leveling, but in game to get more complex, aka a building complexity. Yeah, I think that kind of goes along with what I said. I love it, what they are doing with D4. It adds the complexity slowly, at least to me, it seemed that way. Yeah, I mean, essentially what they're doing is they're giving you all of these things that can help you. Oh, and we didn't even talk about like different character, like different heroes or characters, whatever you want to call them, classes. They have their own level of complexity. You have the necromancer can choose like certain things about their skeletons. You have mastery things for the rogue or the barbarian. Like you have additional things that add additional complexity even further to what we've already said. So yes, what I would say is that I think Diablo 4 is doing that balance. You don't have to 100% master and know all of these things to have fun and be effective in the game. And in fact, to use all of these things, you don't really have to know a whole lot about all of them. As long as you're using them, you're going to get by. But if you want to take these 5, 6, 7, whatever different ways that you can affect your character to make them better and stronger, and you want to start to build them around each other, dude, that's a lot of variables when you got to line up all of these different things to max a character. Maybe it doesn't seem like a lot to somebody that plays Path of Exiles or whatever. I can't comment on that, and it's probably not a lot compared to that. But to say that there's not a level of complexity, I think would go too far. And I don't think Asmongold is necessarily saying this, and I've seen in his reaction videos to others, I think he actually kind of more warms up to that idea later on, and I think he hits it right on the head. But from a perspective of somebody that's not inside of the genre, to like take a look at these things and see them and have a fresh perspective and look on them, I think there's plenty of complexity. And lastly, they can always add a little bit more as they go, right? We're just talking about release of the game. What are they going to do in the first or second expansion, or as the seasons go on? I mean, they could add little bits here and there to enhance things and make the complexity even better. PDF said the skill tree in D4 is just complex enough to get people to think a bit about their builds without being overwhelming. Yes, I think so. You can go through, you can read, you can select stuff, you can kind of respec and things like that. But you can also you can also like really like take the time and hone into if you want to. Yeah, and it's cheap enough to respec if you don't like the skill you took. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I think they'll talk about it in here. I'm gonna keep on topic to anything that's in the video. Each class is going to have a best build. That's just how it goes in games like this. Maybe, probably, but I think what's important, so far it seems like Diablo does it well, is what's the gap between best build and the other builds. If the gap is huge, you have everybody take what's considered to be the best build and nobody take the other build because it's vastly underpowered. Whereas if, you know, the best build kind of ekes it out a little bit, you know, but the other builds are maybe more fun or give you variety or do something different or do something that just makes you feel good as a player, then those are still viable and you go that route. So you want that gap to be pretty small. Oh, yeah, exactly. But yeah, you have to have, you can't have the gap. You can't have a big gap in a really good build versus other builds. And I'm sure some of those will probably exist here, especially as people play it more. But the gaps, at least seemingly at first, don't seem as big.
And I would say, like, if I had to rate the game, I think people always want me to, rate the game. What was it? Is it a 5? Is it a 7? Is it a 10? I would rate Diablo 4, the beta experience, I would rate it probably like an 8.5. I don't really feel comfortable saying 9, and I don't feel comfortable saying 8 either, so I'm feeling somewhere around 8.
I think for somebody that's like been in the genre for a long time, them rating it like an 8.5, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I don't think anybody should scoff at that. 8.5 for somebody in this genre that's played so many different games is a great rating.
8.5. I don't think it's incredible. It's not changing my life. It's not innovative to the point to where it completely, reorients my thinking on the ARPG genre. However, it's very good at doing what it does. And I think that that's what I want to talk about next, is that the actual gameplay, the combat, the questing, etc. I think the idea of having the less, Blizzard is known all the time for their cinematics, especially back in the day, whenever they were just head and shoulders above everybody else.
Cinematics look great, by the way. I love them.
But back in the day, Blizzard cinematics were the fucking gold standard. Anyway, so a lot of the Diablo 4 cinematics are not that amazing. Like, they're not that great. But
I think they're pretty good.
Is that they do show your character in the cutscene.
They don't have that gap that they used to have back in the day when you used to see a Diablo 2 cinematic, and then like you were just so blown away compared to anything else that existed. Like, that gap's not there, but I still think the cinematics looked pretty good. I wish they performed a little bit better. In general, they felt a little jittery at times. But in terms of how well they looked, I was happy.
In a way that is actually pretty fucking good, and I like that. It sounds stupid, but I think I do. And that higher quality of cutscene, I hope they have a couple of them, of course. but it's not necessary for every single end of the act or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think maybe what he's alluding to here is that a lot of the cutscenes weren't like actual like video cutscenes. There's a few of them that you see, right? Like the opening scene, when you first open the game. There's the Lilith one in the church. There's the one at the end. I don't want to spoil for anybody that maybe hasn't seen it, but there's the one at the very end of Act 1. But then you have a ton of additional cutscenes that are actually like seemingly they're being rendered in game. And those are really cool because normally you wouldn't get those. You would get some type of more generic player interaction. But the fact that you're getting these extra cutscenes that put your character in and kind of like make you feel like it's more of something that's happening in the game, I think is really cool. Big man, thanks for following. Appreciate you, dude.
And I've actually really enjoyed just going through the game and seeing more cutscenes, even though they're a little bit lower quality.
Yes.
And I think the overall story of the game, this is, again, Act 1 story. I really liked the story until you got into, like, the main town and you started doing stuff. I like the idea of being that lone, grungy adventurer that smells like fucking, like, horse shit, literally in this case, and you know, you're in this village and then they try to kill you and sacrifice you to a demon and then you kill them. And I felt like that it scaled up quite quickly in terms of the, you know, the complexities of the game and the scale of the game in terms of the narrative. And
I think he's right. Like I would say for the most part, but I have some things to add on to it. But first, like the story from opening the game until the point where the dude drags you into the barn and tries to kill you, and you have to like break out and you like kill the villagers. Like the story there is like, it's so good. It's fantastic. It's a 10 out of 10, like easy 10 out of 10, like not even close 10 out of 10. After that, I think the story elements are good, but I see the criticism that he says in the main storyline. It seems to advance pretty quickly, and maybe that's what it has to do to keep people's attention, right? We're kind of like in this like day and age where people look for these sensational like things, whatever they may be in life, and like getting to the point. We know this is like YouTube content creators, right? Anybody that's created a YouTube video, watch YouTube videos, like you have to get to the point and you can't have too much fluff in between or people get bored. So maybe that's why it kind of advanced quick and also just throws you into the action a lot faster when they do that. But I want to add this, the stories, the little like mini stories you get from all of the side quests. I don't know about the rest of you, but they're really good. I've never been one personally that gets like super invested in side quests. I just haven't. Like I'll do them. Sometimes I listen to the dialogue. Sometimes I don't. Generally I just want to get to my reward at the end. I can say my experience thus far in Diablo 4 is I want to find every single one of the side quests. I want to find them all. I want to listen to the dialogue, and like they're interesting for the most part. They're really good. And the best example I can give of that is somebody in chat might have to remind me of her name. I can't remember her name, but there's this lady in the main town, and she's she like handles like a lot of different like demon possessions that are happening to like different villagers there, and like she goes and she like exorcises a demon from this child, and then like she goes and exorcises this demon from this husband, and then well the demon that came out of the husband actually got into her, and then like when you see that like she's injured and then now the demon's in her, like you're like, wait, holy crap, like no, like I like this chick. Like, what do you mean the demon's in her? And like, as you're going through and completing that mini quest, and then like the demon comes out, and you like fight him and stuff. Like at the end of it, you're like, oh dude, she better not die. Like this girl better not die. That's my girl right there. And I'm not going to let this demon take her. You know what I mean? So I like that you can get invested in the little side quests. And I also like that this is kind of like a side point, maybe more goes to gameplay, but they're freaking everywhere. Like they're in the main town, they're in all the little towns, they're like on the side of the road somewhere, they're like in a dungeon or something. I don't think there's any in dungeons, but you get what I mean. Like the side quests are all over the place, and they pop up at different random times when you like advance the main story or do other side quests. it's really nice. They draw you in more than side quests that I've ever personally experienced in my time of playing, this type of game, or RPGs, or even MMOs. The little bit of experience I have with those a long time ago, they're really good.
And I did not really prefer that as much. If I had to say, I'd say that I like the story in Act 1 Diablo 3 more than I like the story in Act 1 Diablo 4. But I think that both of them are fine. They're passable. They still fit that, that notch of, like, it's kind of like this, it's like Pulp Fiction type stuff, where it's not this super complex, very, like, hard to understand characters. No, not really. It's just, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys, and they're demons, and, there's like a few plot twists, but that's about it. I think that's what Diablo is supposed to be. It's not full of nuances like Game of Thrones or something, and I think that's a good thing. Anyway, so the combat. Story is good. Voice acting, incredible. Great job with voice acting. All of the kind of, like, if you were to think of, think about, like, old Game Informer or like Nintendo Power Reviews, where it says like graphics, voice acting, story, like all of those numbers, I think for Diablo
10.
would be a 10.
Yeah.
Pretty much, at least a 9. Diablo 4.
Voice acting is so good.
Put together. So combat, let's talk a little bit about combat. I think combat is good. Combat is always something that Diablo 3 was great at, and I think that it was pretty decent in Diablo Immortal whenever you weren't lagging through things. So I expected combat to be good, and
the combat, I'm not going to get into like every single class about it. Maybe we'll like look at some class videos later and comment about combat specifically in each class. But I think combat in a general sense was nailed down. Like, you have just the right amount of abilities to be able to use, right? You have 6 total ability slots, and you have to choose them wisely. Some people want more. I can understand the need to want more, but having more reduces decision making. I think about like my time playing Fortnite, right? Like, I would love to be able to hold every single weapon and item in the game, but if I was able to hold every single weapon item in the game, I wouldn't have to make those critical decisions, which is part of like how like the game, like just from a psychological perspective, is fun. It keeps you entertained because you have to think and make the decision of what things do I want to hold. Same thing with the skill slots. And then like, it's really easy so far with the classes I've played to put those slots together in a way that just feels good. And a few of the characters they've really nailed very well. The sorcerer, the necro, the rogue especially, like they feel like that class is supposed to feel, and that's because the combat is just so good on them. The abilities are good. It feels good to use them. You feel like you are that class, and the class is properly represented by the way that the combat goes. There's a couple of the characters that could use a little bit of work on that, right? We won't dive into details. Druid, but generally speaking, the combat is really good. The mob fights are really good. I've seen critique about those. We'll save those for other videos when they come up, because I have thoughts about that as well. But combat, like, I would say combat's like a solid like 9 out of 10. And just only has like a few small things that they could improve if they want to, but if they don't, it's not really going to make the game any worse.
I was proven right. I'm very happy about the combat. I think it's fun, and it's pretty enjoyable overall. The itemization, and actually, before we talk about itemization, let's talk about bosses. I'm going to be real. So I played a barbarian, the first character, and I understand people tell me, oh, well, if you play another version of the barbarian, it's going to be super fun. Like, you're just playing a bad build. Yeah, maybe, but like, bro, I'm going to keep it real. Like, it's not fun chasing mobs that are programmed to run away from you the whole time. It's just not.
I have a comment on that too. And maybe it's based on how much he played Barb. I think his general sentiment is good. Like, if you have mobs that just run away from you all the time and you're a melee character, then that could be super annoying. But when I played Barb, I didn't feel like I had that problem. But maybe they just need more ways to alleviate the problem, because like if you take leap, then you can just leap to the mobs that are getting away from you. Not a big deal. If you have taunt, then you can just taunt the mobs to you. It's not a big deal. But I think for the most part, those are the only two like really good abilities that the Barb has to close ground with mobs. And maybe they either need, I don't know. I think they either need something that is like, they need more skills that do that, maybe even as like a side effect of some sort, to make it to where your average player that doesn't just happen along picking those two skills can close the gap, so to speak. Or maybe there needs to be some more passive based things that keep mobs closer to you. Maybe it should be think like some type of weapon effect that, you know, area effect taunts, or maybe a couple of the skills that when you use them, it does like a pull, like a gravity pull effect or something like that. I could think of a couple skills like ground stomp or something, for example. Like if they put stuff like that in a couple of the extra skills, I think it would help the barb feel a lot better, without going too far in the other direction, which too far in the other direction is I have all the mobs on me and I can't get them off me and I'm going to die. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of a balance there. But I think they can strike that. Stomp feels more like a stun than a pull to me, but yeah, it's just like as a general example, where you can have, I mean, you could think of stomp, it could be a stun. Yeah. But even if it's a stun, you know, keeps the mobs in the general area view. But generally more skills that do that type of thing might not be a bad idea for barb, because right now barbarian's the only one that like really has that trouble. Or maybe the barbarian needs like a ranged attack of like throwing axes or something like that you can take. So at least like that mob that's running away from you, a basic skill of throwing axes, for example, could like could like close that gap for you from a ranged attack perspective rather than a literal movement perspective.
Like, am I a bad barbarian? Am I a fake barbarian? Maybe I am. I played an Archon Wizard in Diablo 3, so, and after I played Sorcerer, I'm probably going to play Sorcerer whenever the game comes out. And, you know, maybe that's just, that's a me situation, but I really didn't like how annoying a lot of the fights were as melee. And I felt like, you know, you're fighting a mob and he's standing inside of a pool that you're supposed to move out of. It's just annoying and like obnoxious to play against. But I mean, again, that could just be a me problem, I'm not sure. But as a melee player who then played ranged after that, I certainly enjoyed ranged a lot more. And at the end of the day, right or wrong, I had more fun as ranged. So anyway, combat I think was great. Bosses were really kind of hit or miss. I think that, again, this is Act 1. So like, I'm not expecting some, you know, like massive, insane level of complexity with bosses. Like I'm not expecting, you know, Vault and Gate 2. I'm not expecting Uber Elder. So guess what? The bosses are pretty simple. They're relatively well put together, and I think that they were fine. Going and doing the side quests and the open world nature of the game.
I think I've seen a lot of critique about the bosses. A lot of people have hated on the bosses. Asmongold here is not, but a lot of other people have, and I generally I think I agree with them. I don't think it would hurt, and I think generally it would help the gameplay just a little bit if a lot of these bosses, even some of the earlier ones that maybe cycle between like two different like attacks, and you know, all attacks of course have their tell. They need to, because if they don't, then there's no way to beat them. I think even some of the simpler ones, like earlier bosses like we've seen so far, they could probably go with another like one or two different attacks to just add into the cycle that would just enhance the play a little bit. The one I can think of that comes to my head, and I don't know if you want to call it a boss. It's not really a boss. It's more like a dungeon boss, I guess. But is the it's for one of the mini quests. You like go down, this dude's brother like has been stealing stuff or something like that, and you go down to this dungeon, and then you fight a thief type like dungeon boss, and dude's very predictable. He throws a bunch of traps, he disappears, he comes back, he throws like this thing that clouds your vision, and he throws a bunch more traps. I mean, that's literally all he does. And he shoots his bow at you, of course. So I think it's like just like finding some way to like randomize, like mix it up, give him a couple more things and more randomize it rather than having it like a set sequence of events that some of these things do, I think would be helpful. First time fighting the werewolf boss in a dungeon took me about 8 times to win, though I think that was due to being barb solo rather than anything, or rogue. On rogue it was cake. Yeah, so like I don't think they need to be harder. I think the difficulty of them generally is pretty good. I just think they could add in a little bit of randomization with an extra like ability or move or two, and it would make the experience more fun. Maybe not so much for the first time you play it or the second time you play it, but if they want the game to have that longevity that they're looking for, where you go back through and you fight all these bosses and do all these different things over and over and over and over again, right? I think the longevity would benefit from the bosses being a little more complex. Maybe even not on the like veteran difficulty. Maybe, and who knows? I mean, we don't really know what they're going to do, but maybe on the difficulty up from veteran, maybe the boss does have an extra move or two, and above that, it has another extra move or two. So I don't know if they have that planned or not, but it'd be a good idea, I think.
Game, sorry about the plane. The open world nature of the game, I actually think flowed really well, and I enjoyed it a lot. The only concern that I have with the open world nature of the game is that there's a lot of like collection type stuff. For example, like you have to get a bunch of different like waypoints. Think about like the Lost Ark Adventurer's Journal if you played that game, and there's like a list of like little chores that you have to do around the world. Click all the statues, open up all the portals, do all the side quests. I will love to do that one time. But if I have to do that every fucking season, I'm going to lose my mind, and I can guarantee you that at a certain point, it will be one of the biggest reasons why I don't play a new Diablo IV season. I don't find it to be fun to repeat the same clicking on the same statues, or even if they randomize the locations, I still don't find it fun. It's fucking boring. It's something you do whenever the game's new and you just want to explore the game, but after you've done that a couple of times, you've kind of, that has worn off its excitement. So I do hope that they change that and they don't make you repeat activities like that so much.
So at least my understanding of the game, his way of how he thinks this works is actually incorrect. So, what he's talking about leads into the Renown system, and the Renown system, at least the way it's been presented and the way it worked in the beta, was that it's an account-wide system. I don't know how many of you got to experience it. If you're out in the main world, you pulled up the map, you hit W on PC. I don't know what it was on controller, what button it was for console, but you hit W, pulled up your Renown, and you got Renown for going through and being a completionist and all these things, finding the statues, unlocking waypoints, completing dungeons, visiting new areas, like all these things. There's like 9 or 12 different things that got you different levels of Renown. Each act, each map has a certain number of Renown total that you can get. I can't remember what the exact number is. I'm sure it'll probably vary per act. It was like, let's say it's like 1,600 Renown that you can collect. It was like, that's if you max and did everything, right? And his concern is that he's expressing here is, I don't want to do that every time because it gets boring and repetitive and old, and like it's a task to do it every time. And if that were the case, I would agree with him. That would be true, but that's not the case. So what happens is when you're on one account, you go through and you collect the Renown, not account, but character. You collect Renown for that one character at first, right? So let's say I'm playing a sorcerer and I go through and I get 1,000 Renown. I get 1,000 Renown. Well, first of all, there's 5 different rewards that you get for Renown in each act. So I go through, I get the 1,000 Renown from and that gets me to, let's say, level 4 out of 5 reward. And then let's say I go and play my Barbarian and I get 200 Renown, but that Renown is different than the 1,000 Renown that I got on my Sorcerer. So that Renown there is just for that character, but the 1,000 Renown that I got on my Sorcerer's account, those 4 rewards that I get those rewards permanently for my account, right? I'm gonna add a caveat and then for Ryan talking in chat, because there's one part of this we don't 100% know for sure, right? So I get that Renown, I get that 1,000 Renown for my Sorcerer, and 2 of those Renown are skill points. One of them's like an extra potion use. I never got to the 4th one. I can't remember what the 4th one is. It might be another skill point. But let's just talk about the ones that I know for sure. So on my Sorcerer, I earned 2 skill points and an extra potion slot. I have 5 potions instead of 4. So now my Barbarian that only has 200 Renown still gets those 2 extra skill points and that 1 potion. My brand new character that I make, or a character that I've already had made before my Sorcerer, whatever, they get those Renown rewards, okay? Now, on my Sorcerer character, let's say I want to work up and get that 5th Renown reward. I have to get to like 1,400 out of 1,600 or whatever it is. First of all, to max out your Renown reward, you don't have to completionist everything. You have to completionist about 4/5 of it or something around there. But let's say I want to go ahead and get that 5th renown reward, the final one. What I cannot do is I cannot, on a new character that I start, just go ahead and get a few hundred more renown, or find, like, do the couple dungeons that I didn't do in my sorcerer and think it's going to add together. That doesn't happen. It doesn't do that. What I would have to do is go back to my sorcerer or go all the way through it on another character again, and I have to get the full 1600 renown on that character, or whatever it is, whatever the number is, 4/5 of the renown that you need to get. I would need to get that on one character, and that unlocks it across the entire account. Okay, so now if I get 3 extra skill points and and 2 extra potion slots or whatever it is, now every single character I ever make and have will automatically have those things. So you don't have to repeat it. And that's the part that I think maybe he misunderstands. I'm pretty sure this knowledge was out there before this video was made. I want to caveat, maybe it wasn't, but I'm pretty sure it was. Now, there's a couple things to, like, asterisks to this. Number 1, you earn gold, an okay amount of gold, nothing too crazy. You earn gold when you complete Renown. If you go through and you do that on another character, you do still get the gold reward. So there's still a small benefit for going through and exploring and things like that on each character, on each class that you make and character you roll. So there's a little bit of that. And then another asterisk is, I don't want to say 100% definitively, because this might not be the case. And if it's not, then Asmongold is 100% correct in what he says. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that. He might be 100% in what he says. Is I don't know that we know for sure that this counts for seasonal ladder characters. If this is not for seasonal characters, and every single season you have to go in and recollect the renown, it's going to be a little annoying. That means every 3 months you have to completionist all 5 acts. Or 4 acts, whatever it is. I think it's 4. You have to completionist all of them, or 40 or 80% all of them, to get your renown rewards again for any characters you make. I would say, based on the way that things sound and what I've heard about renown, I don't think that's going to be the case. If I had the opportunity to talk to Blizzard directly, I don't think there's a 0% chance any of them ever see this video. This is one of our first videos for the channel here. Then I would say that that's the way you guys need to do it. Make Renown permanent for the account in terms of those special rewards, even across seasons. And let's leave it at that. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Do any of you guys have questions about Renown? I won't put this part in the video. I'm going to have to cut this up to make it a little bit shorter. It's a pretty cool little system. I like it. All right. What do we get? Another follow somewhere. Hey, Krachek on Twitch. How's it going, dude? Thanks for following. All right, let's continue. Oops, wrong button.
And now that we're talking about seasons, I guess we'll talk a little bit more about itemization.
Those sound effects are coming through. I really don't want them to. Hold on a second. I want to see if I can turn the sound effects off real quick. Because I don't want them. Oh, you know what? They'll oh no, they come through browser. I'm not going to be able to cut them out. I'm going to have to see alerts. Properties. I don't know if this will cut them out or not. Here, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to delete it out of this scene. That'll be fine. Review of reviews. Diablo 4 review. Is Diablo 4 better than Path of Exile, chat? We've talked about it a little bit. I don't want to like dive deep in right now. There's people that have done a lot of reviews on that, but it's too different from Path of Exile to compare. Path of Exile, while they're both ARPGs, from my understanding as somebody that's only heard reviews about it and not played it directly, is a much more in-depth, complex game than Diablo 4. So it may just be a personal preference thing of if you love that level of complexity that you can get from the game and like these like little nooks and crannies you can go down, you might like Path of Exile better. If you're just more of a ARPG fan generally and like some of the more core aspects of an ARPG, you may have a ton of fun with Diablo 4. You may like to play Diablo 4 and then go back to Path of Exile. You know what I mean? So you'll have to make that decision on your own. But that's from a simplistic point of view. That's how I put it.
And how complex those items are going to be. So it seems like with Diablo 4, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be doing a combination of having rares that are.
Oh, he's talking about items. Let's go back.
More about itemizing. You repeat activity off. It's excitement. So I do hope that they change that and they don't make you repeat activities like that so much. And now that we're talking about seasons, I guess we'll talk a little bit more about itemization.
Okay, let's talk items.
How complex those items are going to be. So it seems like with Diablo 4, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be doing a combination of having rares that are, like 5 affix rares, and then you can put legendary powers onto them. It seems like that will probably be the meta, unless the legendary power is like extremely powerful in terms of like a binary functionality. Then you would probably want to have the solid legendary, because transferring the powers, I think, makes them weaker in some cases. But anyway, the itemization I think is okay, but I don't really find it to be particularly interesting. And maybe this is just me, but a lot of the different bonuses that I got, I never really got this bonus and was like, wow, this is fucking amazing. I'm doing so much more damage. I just was like, okay, cool. Now I have this and my abilities do more damage. And I think, again, this is very much probably an issue of the beta. But I do remember back in Diablo 3, and I think a lot of you guys who have played Path of Exile or even WoW remember how good it feels to get like that fucking Omega Bis item, or like to get something that's just build defining. You go from, like being able to just be able to do it to being able to do it without even looking at the screen, or being able to not even have a chance to being able to do it easily. And I remember in Diablo 3, like I would get like a ring or a pair of gloves. I think gloves were like one of the best ones that would have like, my main damage stat, critical strike damage, critical strike chance, and attack speed all on my fucking gloves. And it's like, oh my god, I am a god now. And I could feel my character play better. And I hope that Diablo 4 gives you that ability to do it, because I think that's one of the best things about ARPGs, is to feel your character getting more powerful and to feel those cool things that you're able to get. And I just really hope Diablo 4 is able to capture that in the context of it being a much more simplistic game. And you're getting so many uniques as like a level 25. I don't.
There, before he says this, on itemization generally, I've seen some of his commentary after this video, and it like contradicts this a little bit. So I think maybe his opinions kind of evolved a little bit over the last 8 days about this, and I think in a positive way. Or maybe he's just maybe it's not that it's evolving. Maybe he's just expressing it differently. But here, it kind of like sounds like he's very worried about the quality of looting in the game and the quality of the loot itself and how it feels like it affects your character in the game. First thing I'll say is we're in Act 1, up to level 25 of a open beta is where we were at this point. Go back and look at Act 1 up to level 25 of Diablo 2 or Diablo 3, from what I remember playing those back in the day, and playing a little bit of D2R recently just to like dip my toe back into the water. You didn't get items that felt like they changed your character at all. I don't know. We got some Path of Exile players in the chat here. I don't know if that's the case in that game as well, but in the first act, on the like entry level difficulties before you unlock new ones, I don't think you're going to find itemization that changes your character. And I would say I saw a few items that did feel like pretty powerful. Maybe not to the level that he's explaining it, of like being like super exaggeratedly powerful, but powerful nonetheless. One of our regular viewers here showed me a affix that he got that gave his sorcerer an extra Hydra. The first Hydra is pretty darn powerful and fun to play with. Having 2 of them, even better. And he got like +3 to his Hydra skills. Like Hydras were just demolishing stuff. You know what I mean? So I think it's still yet to be seen, and it's way too early to judge. But I believe that we're going to end up seeing plenty of skills that feel unique and complementary to different player builds or styles that will alleviate this potential concern for people. All right, let me check chat. PoE 500 skills, but majority of people just copy and paste builds. I'm hooked on Diablo 4, bro. I want them to drop it now so bad. Hey, Aka, how's it going, dude? Thanks for jumping in. Me too, man. It's gonna be a hard 2 months. It really is. Making some content on D4 is gonna be what gets me through. This is my second channel. So I have a main channel that I still make content for that'll help keep me through as well. But yeah, dude, I can't wait. I really can't. I'm ready for Diablo. Me too, man. I think D4 will be able to achieve that build defining itemization, but it will be towards Endgame. I don't know. Yeah, well, you got to think like first difficulty. Once you get through Act 4, you're going to get up to level 50. Difficulty after that, you'll be able to get to 75. Difficulty after that, you'll be able to get to 100 is what it's looking like. So like we haven't even seen a quarter of the game. If you got to think, there's 3 core difficulty levels. If you don't count adventurer, there's veteran, and then whatever the 2 above that are named, and then you have 4 acts per difficulty. So we've visually seen 25% of the game, but realistically, we've experienced like more like 1/7 or 1/8 of the game. You know what I mean? So I think it's hard to. People like to form opinions, which is all well and good. I think people should form opinions, like give opinion-based commentary on the 8% of the game that we've actually gone through. But I think I would just like add in that they should add in that caveat of like, we don't really fully know yet. And some people act like they definitively know. Asmongold doesn't, but there's others that will probably watch that do. People shouldn't act like they know for sure that what we've seen so far is all that there is, because that's just crap, I think. Anyways, +1 from Affix, and for every 300 mana spent gave me 5-headed Hydra. Oh wow, that's really good. A 5th-headed Hydra. That's really good. Oh, and you were doing that with 2 Hydras, right? I had 3 Hydras, +1 from Affix for every 300 mana spent. Interesting. PoE's in balance for 1. Yeah, I don't know enough to comment about it. Okay, hold on. He's about to say something else I want to comment on.
I don't know if more and I just really hope Diablo 4 is able to capture that in the context of it being a much more simplistic game. And you're getting so many uniques as like a level 25. I don't know if this is increased for the beta or not. I worry that
it is confirmed that it was increased for the beta, about 300%. So for any of that we're wondering, you're getting 3 times the amount of rare loot that you would have gotten. So where it felt like it was easy to deck out and get up to level 25 and have like all rare stuff that was pretty solid, it's not going to happen when full release hits. So just set your expectations, and really it's better that way, which will also mean that the game will feel a bit harder when you go and play it when it does full release, because you're not going to have as good a gear, which is a good thing in that specific regard.
You're going to be playing the game, and within the first 10% of like the first day or 2 of playing the game, you will have obtained like 80 to 90% of the functionality of your build, and then after that you're just searching for upgrades for that build. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
But that's not how it's playing out. You're getting a decent amount of the functionality from your build, but that's not how it's playing out. Again, the loot is not going to be an issue because we're getting 3 times loot in the beta. That's not the case anymore, so you can kind of toss that out. You are making it a decent way around down the build tree in the first 25 levels. Like you're almost down to the bottom of it. So functionally, in terms of what your character has to use, you do get most of the way there. And I could see how like maybe like big fans of the genre could think that that's a bad thing. But I think that's their preference based on them liking there to be more to unlock in the end game, I think. I, as more of a normie player, I don't see it as a bad thing necessarily. I like the idea that I've kind of like gotten to the point, you know, a quarter of the way through leveling my character, maybe a little bit more than that, probably like close to like level 30-ish. You'll be far enough down the skill tree to have the access to try every skill that there is, the access to do it. Those skills won't be at their highest form. You're going to get a lot more skill points, do a lot more things, etc., etc. But I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. And then there's other functionality too that you unlock for your character as you go. Was it Cursed Book or whatever for the Necromancer, the expertise lineup for the barb and the rogue. I don't really know a lot about those. I don't know that a lot of people do, because a lot of that stuff was kind of locked behind the beta. The druid supposedly is going to have like different things that it gets from like different areas of the game that make it stronger. So there's going to be more things that unlock more like skill or abilities or things or enhancements to your character, and then there'll be the loot that comes like later on in the game too. So I think that you'll see all of those things occur. And then also, like, who's to say that Blizzard couldn't expand the tree at some point too, and make it to where some more things appear further down? I don't know if that'd be a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not really quite sure, but it's something that they could do if they wanted to.
I could see that being kind of, it's like a one and done type situation. You play the game for a few days each season and then that's it. But I can't really see myself coming back and playing future seasons if the itemization isn't a little bit more complex and I don't have a little bit more agency over controlling it. You're able to do a few things with the items, but I don't know if it's going to be enough, especially in season 5 of
I don't know what he's referring to here, and this is going to be something with me not being, as heavy into the genre as all these guys that are like experts at the ARPGs and old Diablos are. But I mean, I feel like I have decent agency over my weapon. I can have a weapon, right? I have a weapon. I can add an affix to it. You guys can't see my hand, it's over here. I can have a weapon. I can add an affix to it. I can upgrade it at the blacksmith. I can add gems to it, and I have like different all sorts of different gems you can add to it. You can add sockets to it, so you can add more gems to it. At least I don't know what the limitation is to that, but that has, so like you have a lot of different ways that you can take an item that you like and make it even better. Maybe it doesn't like completely change the item, but I mean that's what looting's for, right? You go and find an item that has more of the things you like, and then you enhance that. But I like the fact that you have some agency over your weapons and over your gear, and things that you can do, or you can create your own gear. You can get decent gear from gambling. You can, like you have just different ways to get it, and you have a number of different ways to enhance it once you have it. Yeah, there's so much room for getting build specific items for sure. Yeah, and like part of it too is like you don't want to have too much agency. I don't want to have the ability to modify every stat about my gear, because then, and I don't think he's saying this, but I don't want to have too much agency to where I can modify everything about my gear, because then you lose the whole point of hunting for it in the first place. I think they've got like just the right balance of, man, I found this one unique item that I really like a lot, and I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add this affix to it to make it even better, and I'm going to spend all the gold that I can to upgrade it all the way, and I'm going to put some gem slots on it, and I'm going to work myself up to perfect gems or flawless gems or whatever the top tier is, and I'm going to put those in it. And then like a crap ton of gold and resources and time later, you've taken that item, that unique item that was pretty powerful and you like a lot, and you've made it godlike. That ability is there. I think it's there. I think it's well balanced. And then if you happen to change your character around, well, you could pay some gold to take the gems out, right? You can, I don't think you remove the affix from it. I don't think you can remove an affix from something you've already put it on, but in any event, like you can recoup some of that loss or resource put in or whatever, or you can just build up another item for a different build if that's what you want to do. Okay, back food acquired. IMO gear seemed fine. No real complaints. Yeah, for sure. Obols are OP. I mean, you can get some pretty good stuff from the gambling. I think they're pretty nice to have. It's good that they put a limit on it too.
Of Diablo 4 or season 11 of Diablo 4. I don't really see myself coming back and enjoying that same type of itemization and build control. I just feel like it's very much on rails. I like playing games where I can effectively play a character and make it so OP that it feels like I'm doing something that I shouldn't be able to.
And that's what we just got to. I think you're going to be able to do that. You're going to find a really good unique item that's going to add like a whole bunch to some skill points and stuff, or effects that you like and really complement your build. And then you're going to slap a bunch of gems on it. You're going to add an affix to it that just feels like stupid OP that you love a lot. You're going to upgrade it a few times at the blacksmith, and you're going to have a weapon that just feels like it's super stupid OP and can't be stopped. That I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. We'll see at the end of the day. But I think that ability and that feeling is going to be there. You can strip affixes indefinitely, I think. Notice that you can only have one affix on an item. Yeah, you don't want to be able to keep adding more and more affixes. They have to add in a level of decision making. So I think one per item is fine, and you can strip affixes definitely. If you can strip them indefinitely, I don't think that's a bad thing. I do think it'd be a decent idea for it to either get more and more expensive to strip an affix the more times you do that, strip that one particular one, or the quality of the affix slowly degrades. I would probably go with the material cost as opposed to the degradation method, but I don't think it's a bad idea to even maybe have some type of guardrails on it a little bit. You know what I mean?
And I don't know if Diablo 4 is going to give you enough tools to be able to do that. So that's in general the way that I feel about the itemization. It's not amazing. It's not awful, but it is what it is, I guess.
It's pretty good.
So next thing is going to be, like, again, I'll talk a little bit more about the open world content and the MMO nature of the game. I heard from a number of people that Diablo 4 really felt like much more of an MMO than an ARPG. And I think that, I mean, as somebody who's an MMO player, I think this is great. I'm very happy about this. And I went through and I
think it's a good mix.
I interacted with other players. It was seamless. They were never annoying. They never made my experience worse. And overall, I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was great. And I like the idea of going into town and seeing other players. And, you know, I hate to say it, but Diablo Immortal did this too. And the truth is that it was really fun in Diablo Immortal too.
I like this too. I really wouldn't go as far as saying it feels like an MMO. Just because the level of interaction is different, but if that's what you want to call it, I think it's fine. But it's nice to feel like you're in this multiplayer environment where there's other people running around doing stuff. Like he said, I never felt like it took away from my experience. If anything, I got kind of excited. Like, I would see other players doing like one of the red challenge areas on the map. I'd be like, oh crap, there's somebody over there. Like, I'm gonna go help him out. Or somebody like rolled into the one I was doing. I didn't care. Like, whatever. Like, it's cool. Like, come on in, bro. Like, there's room for more people. Let's go. So that was fun. I liked seeing people walking around in town. It just makes you feel like you're not playing alone. Even if you are playing alone, it makes you feel like you're not playing alone. I think for a lot of people, this could be a good way to like find somebody to play with too. Like, what if you're playing alone, but you want to play with somebody else, and you're a level 18 sorcerer, and you see a level 17 necromancer walking around by himself? Shoot the dude an invite. Have fun and play. Why not? The fact that you can run into somebody and find somebody to like play with and do stuff with, I think that's pretty fun. I think it's a good idea. PDF, I see people running around all the time, but we are each doing our own thing. Yeah, exactly. And see, they instance the things that need to be instanced. Go into a stronghold, it's instanced. Go into a dungeon, it's instanced. You're doing part of your main quest line, it's instanced. Your own quest is instanced. I think it is. Well, no, maybe I'm not your own quest. The mini quests. I don't think they are instanced, but like all the important things that you would possibly want to keep somebody out of, they're all instanced, so you don't have to worry about them. They struck such a good balance. They really did a good job with this. You could tell a lot of thought was put into it. And we're not going to get into it now, but I have a better understanding of how the whole like scaling difficulty for level works. But the way they've done it basically allows them to have like a wider gap of level of characters in the world together and actually be able to coexist, which is really cool. But we'll talk about that more, because one of the reviews I watched spoke about this, I think, to some extent, and we'll comment on it when we get to that. This one person was level 24 and I was level 10 druid. They helped me so much, like traded with me some challenge. That's cool. It's really cool. Ran into another sorcerer and invited them, and we did like 10 dungeons. See, dude, that's so awesome. Like, it's such a smart thing for them to do, and it's so much better than Diablo's past, or what I imagine, you know, PoE or really any other ARPG is like. It's they brought in the best elements that you could bring in of an MMO to the ARPG genre. Really smart.
So I'm really glad to see them add that same functionality into Diablo 4 and make the game feel a little bit more open and allow you to interact with other people. You can, I think, inspect them, look at their gear, which is, I think, super important in the RPG. And I think overall, the open world aspects of the game, the world boss and everything, I think it's really cool, and I like it a lot. I can see how some people that were purists of the game wouldn't have the same opinion, but for me,
And that's fine if they have that opinion.
That's some of the main feelings
It's okay.
I have about Diablo. Diablo 4. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I'd really want to go through. Obviously, you know, like a lot of intangibles, things like graphics, things like the menus, etc. I think all that stuff is fine.
It all looks good.
Nothing really bad about it. It's good. It's
look at Modern Warfare 2 that came out. Modern Warfare 2 2022. They tried to like go fancy and like different with the menus. Everybody hated it. Everybody considered it dumpster fire garbage because they got freaking like Hulu or something to design them for them. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. All the menus felt good. The only thing that I had trouble with, or the only thing that I think they could have done better, is when you selected like when you go to start the game, it asks you if you like wanted more or less like tips or information or whatever. If somebody selects the more tips and information, I think having more pop-up tool tips would be a good idea. I can't tell you how far I went into the game as Necro before I knew that there is that extra little bar up there that let me change like what type of like what my skeletons did. So adding more like tooltips and like maybe little like question mark things to like that people can click on to just give them information or point out areas of the screen they didn't know about. That would be a really, really, really good idea for them to do, like incredibly good. And then if you like, maybe if you pick the mode where you don't get the tooltips, then fine, those don't have to pop up. Maybe you still have a little question mark thing that somebody can click on if they wanted help or something like that. But otherwise, I think that's just a basic criticism I think they could do to make it better and easier for all these new people they're going to bring into the genre. Really wish they let us into the fields of hatred in the beta. I think they have to add a shot. They have to keep like a few shock factors of like things that like people are going to be dying to do when the full game releases. So I can understand why they didn't. But yeah, being able to PvP would be really fun.
Definitely passable. There are a lot of people that have been negative about Diablo 4 because, you know, it doesn't make them feel the same way that Diablo 3 or Diablo 2 did. I think
I hate people act like that.
That's probably a product of its time, and I'm not necessarily sure that you can have any game that'll make you feel that way again. But if you do find one, please let me know too, because I'd love to have that feeling again. Diablo 4 didn't really do that for me either, which is why it's not.
It reminds me of the person that like, I don't know, watches Harry Potter or something like that, or Lord of the Rings, and they're like, this movie sucks because it's doesn't have all the details that the book had, so screw this movie. Like, I can't stand when people do that. So some people probably do it in like an honest way, right? Where they're like, oh, well, like I have this criticism because I like this about Diablo 2 better. And oh, well, this one thing about Diablo 3, I liked that better. Then I like, oh, that's good. But people that are just like, man, this game is just dumb. All they did was they reskinned Diablo 3 and named it Diablo 4. It's stupid. Like those people are just dumb. I don't know if we'll watch any of those reviews or not. I can't remember. But I have no love for people to do that. It's just stupid.
Some sort of like a 10. Again, this is not Elden Ring, okay? It's not the, you know, greatest level of innovation in ARPGs since Path of Exile. But it's a good, solid game. It seems fun, and it seems like Diablo isn't really trying to compete as much with Path of Exile. They're trying to broaden the scope of what the ARPG genre is and appeal to a more casual gamer and a person that wants to be able to go into the game, understand it, and play it without using a bunch of different spreadsheets and looking things up online at least too much, until they get to the Paragon board, that is. So overall, my feelings on the game are overwhelmingly positive. I'm very happy about it. I think that I'm reserving judgment for a lot of different things like endgame systems, etc. But my main concern with the endgame is actually very similar to my concern with the itemization, which is why would I want to play Diablo 4 Season 6 just to go and run the same dungeons again and again and again? Because Path of Exile has such a great tiering of their progression content. You know, you've got maps, you've got like, I don't know, you've got the boss maps.
Hold on, I want to go back to what he just said right there.
Which is, why would I want to... main concern with the endgame is actually very similar to my concern with the itemization, which is, why would I want to play Diablo 4 Season 6 just to go and run the same dungeons again and again and again?
So I don't know if I don't know how much he has like kept up with like some of the systems that Diablo has. And sometimes it's kind of hard to keep up with everything. Or maybe like sometimes it's kind of like even hard to like pull from your memory something that you've been told before when you're in a context like this where you're just talking about stuff. But there's like something really important that he's missing here, which is that's not how Diablo 4 was designed at all. Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, initially at least, were exactly this. You would beat the game, and then you would run Magic Find Mephisto runs over and over and over and over and over again. I didn't play Diablo 3 in that way. I beat it once and that was it. But Diablo 3, from my understanding, was like that until they like did some upgrades to it like not that long ago. And what it looks like they did, by the way, when they did D2R and some of the things they've added to D3, either they designed those things after the fact and liked them and are bringing them to D4. I think it's more likely they had these ideas for D4 and like early on in the drawing board stages, like 4, 5, 6 years ago. And they were like, hey, like, let's test this out now. Let's put this into Diablo 3 and see if it makes it better and see what people think. Let's put this into D2R and see what people think about it before we implement it in its final form in Diablo 4. I think that's what they did. But essentially what they've done with Diablo 4 is they've erased, at least seemingly for now, we'll see how it actually plays out when the full game hits and people get to level 100 and all that stuff. But seemingly what they've done is they've completely erased the necessity for getting the best items, of finding that one most efficient place and that one most efficient build. Everybody gets that build. Everybody goes to that place. And then you do it over and over and over and over again for days, weeks, months, years. Just all an effort to find the best loot. They've eliminated that. And the way they've eliminated it largely is with 150 dungeons in the world in an open world environment where you can easily go to any of these places, and the introduction of something called glyphs. I don't want to try to speak to where and how you get all of these glyphs or the initial ones or whatever, because I don't 100% recall, but essentially you're going to get these glyphs, and a glyph is a randomized attribute or set of attributes that make a dungeon harder. For example, I don't know if this is an example one or not, but let's say, for example, 50% of the mobs that spawn in are mobs that explode, or mobs have 2 times more, or all mobs are extra health. There's like something like that, right? And maybe you have multiple of these like mob affixes on, or modifiers or whatever you want to call them on a glyph. And that glyph will tell you, go to dungeon number 4 in Act 1. Like, it'll tell you what the name of the dungeon is. Maybe I'm sure it'll probably even have a way that you can like waypoint, or not waypoint, but like make it pop up on your map so you know what dungeon to go to. You go to that dungeon with the glyph or whatever. You beat the dungeon. You get special rewards for beating that dungeon. And that dungeon, I think, is the idea of it is that dungeon will then drop a new glyph. So if you want to get on this, like in this cycle of I want to loot grind, instead of loot grinding the old school way of put on your loot grinding gear and go to the loot grinding place, now instead you'll take one of your glyphs, you'll go to the dungeon that glyph tells you to, you'll defeat that dungeon, you'll get the loot, and to continue your loot grind, you'll take the glyph that you get from that dungeon and then go to the next one, and then go to the next one, and then go to the next one. So if I'm doing an 8-hour loot grinding stream, right? Maybe we do that at some point. I don't know. We'll see how much we get into things and how it all works out. But if we're doing an 8-hour loot grinding stream, instead of somebody watching me beat Mephisto 76 times with Magic Find gear on, instead they'll probably see me go to 76 different dungeons. It's probably an exaggeration. Probably be more like 20. They'll see me go to 20 different dungeons, and each dungeon is different and has a different experience, different dungeon boss. It's different every single time, with different bonuses that these guys get in a different location of the map, with a different looking dungeon boss, or a different looking dungeon, a different dungeon boss experience every single time. So repetitiveness from that regard seemingly is out of the window. Lil Spoon said that will change when leaderboards and seasons come out, sadly. I mean, you may be right. That is how Mythic Plus works in WoW with the affixes. Okay. Aka says, I don't know, I felt like I was playing Diablo even though I had played that style MMO. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about here. Oh, okay. Felt like Diablo all the way. Yeah, for sure. Hold on. This is one of the smartest things that they've done, because it should erase the repetitiveness out of a lot of this for people that don't handle repetitiveness in that way well. Now, let me add this one additional thing in. I hadn't thought about this until just now. It just dawned on me. I don't know that you have a way. Do you have a way to repeat like the storyline bosses again? Did anybody find that out? Because I don't know how you would do it. You kind of trigger the story via NPCs that take you through. You don't just go into the dungeon and the boss is in there. So after I defeat, say, the final boss in Act 1, do you have a way to go and fight the final boss in Act 1 again if you wanted to? I don't really think there's a purpose to doing it because of the whole glyph thing and the way that loot seems to be rewarded. But it would be good to be able to do it, I think, is where I'm getting at.
Because Path of Exile has such a great tiering of their progression content. You know, you've got maps, you've got like, I don't know, you've got the boss maps, you've got other bosses, you've got Shaper, Elder, Uber Elder, Sirius, the Conquerors, the Elder Guardians, the Shaper Guardians, like, and there's the Exarch and the Eater of Worlds, and there's all these different like benchmarks, Cortex. There's all these benchmarks that the player can put themselves up against and then try to overcome this challenge. And I'm very concerned that Diablo 4 won't have that.
I think that's a good concern. But I think that goes outside of like the loot grind, and that just goes to like, sometimes, dude, you just want a challenge. And I wonder if Diablo 4 is going to have that. And I'm only going to dip my toe into this water right now, but there's this whole thing with mobs resistance to the player based on like level or gear, whatever it is. That make it to where you can kind of travel anywhere seemingly and fight mobs that are just like normal competitive level to you. There's no like, I don't know how much of punching above your weight that there is. Maybe like the strongholds, like there may be a couple of like little things. I don't know. It's just something that's in my head right now as he said that makes me think like they definitely need to have something in the game that is not only for the purpose of loot grinding and it's been designed around that. They do need some things in the game that are, this is going to challenge the player. This is going to be incredibly hard for the player to beat. And that be the purpose of whatever that thing is. Maybe some type of like unique reward that goes outside of the loot grind to where people wouldn't just do that challenge over and over again to get uber loot. Maybe it just needs to be something else that they get from it. I don't know what that thing is off the top of my head. But that wouldn't be a bad idea.
And the end game won't feel as fulfilling as the Path of Exile.
They do. It's the butcher. It randomly spawns super hard. Yeah, but like, so you need something of that caliber that can be triggered by the player, because the butcher is really hard. And honestly, the strongholds can be pretty hard too, but once you do them once, they're done. And the strongholds were pretty fun challenges. You need something along that line that the player can like repetitively do in a way that's maybe a unique experience each time, kind of like we've talked about with dungeons.
Silent game does. That's my biggest actual concern with the game, is that the Diablo 3 end game, I played a few seasons in Diablo 3, even Reaper of Souls. It's fucking boring. All you do is run rifts. That's it. It's like, imagine in PoE, if the only thing that you could do is run tier... Well, you could just run infinitely tiered maps. So like, instead of running a tier 15 or tier 16 map, you're running like a tier 27 map. And if you get hit once, you're dead, but you can kill everything in like 2 hits because you're built completely for damage. That's basically the way that Diablo 3 rifts work. I mean, not exactly, but you can see kind of what I mean. Think about, there's no other activities. There's nothing else to do. All you do is you just run rifts.
So what he's saying is, like, is there something like this could go right into the dungeon grind I talk about? Is that all you have to do is just go through and grind these dungeons with the glyphs. Like maybe the experience itself is unique in each dungeon that you do, but the fact that you're just repeating dungeons is the repetitive part. I don't know. I think we'll have to see what else they have in store for us. The PvP could be fun, but PvP is not for everybody. World bosses, I think, are something, but how often are those going to happen? I think I would argue they need to happen pretty often. I would also say that they probably need something that's more like a stronghold. This is what they need to do, or something they can do. They need to do something that's like the mixture of what a stronghold is and what the world bosses are. You need like world events. A world event where maybe one of the strongholds you've unlocked is under siege, and you go to that stronghold to help defend it from this like really stupid hard challenge or something. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. But yeah, I think having more in-game things to do that is different than just the loot grind is a good idea. Sigils invite new challenges. They just didn't have it in the beta. I'll have to look into sigils. I know I've heard the term. I don't remember what they are. We're not going to jump into it this very second, but maybe a good point.
And that's it. I find that to be so boring. And that's my biggest concern with Diablo 4, is that the end game will just simply be boring. It will be repetitive, not fun, not innovative. There won't be benchmark bosses. There won't be capstone challenges. And I really hope that doesn't happen, because I really want to enjoy the game. I've had
world events, I think, is the answer. Like pretty frequent ones, but cycling through different areas. Like there should be multiple world events a day. Some of them are like the world bosses. Maybe some of them be this like stronghold idea I have, or something special that happens somewhere on the map. In different like random areas of the world, not on any kind of set schedule or anything like that. I don't know. I think something like that would be really good. I think something like that would be really good. It needs to be more than just a world boss, though. That's a small piece of the puzzle. Maybe they already have something like this. I don't know, but it needs to be more than just a world boss. But world events in a game that you've set up in this way, it would be absolutely perfect.
had a lot of fun playing the beta. I'm probably going to go play it right now. But the truth is that level 25 beta doesn't really give you a lot of insight into the end game. And with a game like Diablo, you're going to be through this type of content in like 2 or 3 days. So unless you only expect people to play the game 2 or 3 days, what do you do after that? Well, that's what really matters. So we'll just have to wait and see what that actually looks like. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. I wanted to go out and talk about this. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'd be curious to hear your comments and thoughts about Diablo 4. I'm kind of curious myself, actually, because I've read very, very extreme opinions of both things, and I'm not really sure exactly where people's sentiment lies, but that's mine. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you later. Peace.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Asmongold. You'll probably never see this video, but I appreciated watching it and sharing my thoughts and opinions based on what he said. All right, let's go ahead and cut this recording. All right, we're off recording now. What did you guys think of my first go at a reaction video to somebody's review? I definitely think I need to shorten myself a little bit. We just went like an hour and 20-ish minutes to that. And I'm going to try to cut that down some, but I would like to keep these a little bit shorter. I mean, if it's a 20-minute video, there's only so like short it can be. But that would be my only thing. Hey, Minotaur, how's it going, dude? Only thing would be is how many of us would be chained to the computer waiting for world events? Yeah, I think that's why, Akka. I think that's why you would have to have like them kind of randomly cycle and be pretty frequent, like every like couple hours or something like that. And them offer a reward that's maybe it's the same way that you like, maybe it's loot again, right? Maybe it's the same kind of loot that you get by doing dungeons, but it's just a different way of getting it. I don't know. But just something that's a different way of doing it. So you passed the first test of React videos. You didn't just sit there and watch it, then at the end say, wow, great video, and end it. What? I hope nobody actually does that. That'd be really boring. But it was fun. We have 12 people watching on Twitch right now, which is a little unusual for Twitch to have that many. How you Twitch peeps doing? Aka's the only one talking over there. If you're lurking, say hello. You're left going, okay. I don't know what that means. Okay. So that was the first one. Who's recording a React video to Prowl's React video? You know, like Asmongold, if you look at him, he's got a lot of React videos. Right and then there's I thought the idea of doing a React video to a React video, I did not like it. Oh. See, look, like he's reacting. I have huge concerns about Diablo 4. Like the fact, like I just find it's going to be too hard to react to a reaction. But like, I'm super curious about this. This just dropped an hour ago. How long is it? See, it's 27 minutes. That's one of the problems. The initial video is going to be 15, 20 minutes. The reaction to the reaction is going to be like 30, 40 minutes. It makes it too long to do. React videos are so popular. They really are. And they're fun. I like them. I do enjoy them. But yeah, I could have content for days reacting to reactions from Asmongold and others, but it's just, I think it's too much. I think it's too much to react to a reaction. So what I've been trying to do is like pull these videos.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And I've started with some of the older ones that because I wanted them to be like, I wanted to get those out of the way before we get to some of the more recent ones that have happened after the latest beta. And I'm sure a lot of these videos, we're probably gonna have a lot come out this whole week. So we'll probably have a lot to react to, I imagine. Oh, Jaden. Only thing would be is how many. Okay, then the reaction to the reaction to the reaction. It's too much. Next thing you know, it's a 24-hour reaction to the like 12th power. Okay, so let's see. We are hour and 40 into stream. Let me grab, oh no, I have a water here. Let me put a fresh water in the fridge so I have one for a little bit later. I'm gonna step away for just a second. I'll be right back and we're gonna hop into the next video, which is gonna be by Kripparian. Or Kripparian. Sorry, I mispronounced his channel name. Let me close this Asmongold one. Be right back. right, guys. Thanks for hanging out there for me. Appreciate it. All right, let's get this off the screen. Make sure I have the chats properly pulled up. Ryan, awesome, dude. Okay. So as I said, we're going to jump into this Kripparian video. Let me do some type of like opener. Let me hit record. I don't want to figure to record. And let's figure out some type of opener for Kripp here. Okay, so we're going to watch this video from Kripparian on how good is Diablo 4. Context, this video is about 7 days old, so this was after the early access beta, before the open beta. So I don't know if he's had any kind of change of opinions or anything like that. I do want to point out that my perspective will likely differ greatly from Kripparian's. It doesn't mean that I think that his perspective, generally speaking, is necessarily wrong, although who knows, like I'll probably use the word wrong like multiple times during this, but really just understand that my perspective and where I'm coming from is different than him. My understanding of Kripp is that he has been in the ARPG space for a long time. He's probably immensely more knowledgeable about the space than I am, and has a lot of different things that he would like to see from the space that differ from me. My perspective is a much more normie perspective, a much more, hey, I haven't played an ARPG in a long time, or I don't play them all the time, or maybe this is your first time playing an ARPG such as Diablo. That's more of the direction I'm coming from. So without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's make sure we have playback speed turned up a little bit so we can get through this a little bit faster. Oh, wow. This is an hour long. I can't do an hour long one. Hold on, can we start at the beginning of this really quick?
Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparian here. Today I want to talk to you about Diablo 4, what I have learned, and I want to make this video to give you a bit of history of me with the Diablo genre.
I could have swore he had something else that was shorter. Hold on. Where is it? Maybe it's not. Maybe this is the one. All right. So we're not going to go. How many views?
Hey guys, how's it going?
544,000. Okay. Here, let's kind of reset a little bit. We'll still use that beginning part for the intro, but I'm just going to kind of reset me getting into it. Also, I need to update the stream title and stuff real quick. Reacting to Kripparian. And what we'll do with this one is we'll kind of skip around a little bit, fast forward, etc. I don't want to sit here through the whole hour, because that means I'll take multiple hours. All right, Kripparian. Okay, that one's been updated. Let me update Kick, even though nobody has been there the whole time. Save. And then let me update Twitch. Okay. PDF. Okay. So we're not going to watch this entire Kripparian video. It's an hour and 6 minutes long. I do want to watch certain segments of it. We may skip around a little bit. So just context for you guys, we may not get every single opinions of his. So I recommend that you go probably watch his video. I'll remember to link it down in the description below if you wanted to see his full, unedited or skipped opinion in full context.
Here. Today I want to talk to you about Diablo 4, what I have learned, and I want to make this video to give you a bit of history of me with the Diablo genre, what you can expect out of Diablo 4, my experience, and before all of that, I want to give you guys a bit of history. So, I love the Diablo genre. I actually quit my job and became a streamer, full-time YouTuber.
Okay.
As I see it, despite
I want to get to where he's talking about the game.
Releasing it 2.5 months from now. But it's all we got, so my opinion is based on that. I played Diablo 1 when what they came up. Diablo 1 really defined, multiplied everything. They tried to change that in a different way. They tried to revolutionize trading with a real money auction house. You know, Diablo 3 was an incredibly ambitious project. However, we were playing this last weekend is where they currently are with development, more or less. Knowing that the game is going to be fully released for console and PC now for way more than 2.5 months to get the game to that point where it is a masterpiece. And a lot of mechanics in this game just need a little bit of work, but we'll launch. What we were playing this last weekend is where they currently are with development, more or less. Knowing that the game is going to be fully released for console and PC and whatever else in 2.5 months from now, I think the game will launch and be about 6 stars out of 10. That's kind of where I would rate it.
Oh, God. I don't know where he gets that from. Like, I've seen so many games released lately that, like, it's a dumpster fire in beta, and then everybody's like, yo, dude, like, this thing's like, you got to fix some stuff in this. And then it comes out, and then it's a dumpster fire. And I don't see, I guess he's going to tell us. I don't see where you rate this game as 6 out of 10 at launch. I really don't. It felt complete. And the only real issue I had were some like connectivity based bugs and systems, which I'm guessing he'll probably talk about. And if he does, I have some comments about those things, but no way do I think it'll be a 6 out of 10. I think rightly from any perspective, except for somebody that is really just way more into that like hardcore ARPG, like very, very like strictly held expectations. Maybe that is Kripp, which is fine. But let's go.
Now, with that said, I think it's important to note that a lot of that comes from the fact that I think a lot of mechanics in this game just need a little bit of work, but it needs to be very smart work. Like, there's a lot of mechanics that are really rough, kind of unfinished, I would say, have serious problems, and some of them can be fixed fairly easily,
we'll give him a
and
chance.
Some require quite clever solutions that I don't even have right now. And I think all of that, because the overall system of Diablo IV is complex, will take some time. And I certainly think it's going to take way more than 2.5 months to get the game to that point where it is a masterpiece. And I do think that in the very positive case, where this development cycle continues on after the game's release, I think like a year from its release, like the 3rd, maybe 2nd season, because it is going to be launching with seasons, I think it could be like a 9 out of 10, maybe 9.5 out of 10 game. I can kind of understand the goals that the game tries to hit. I can kind of understand where it's coming from, but I don't think it's quite there, and it would really surprise me if it gets there in the time period of 2.5 months. But you know what? Maybe they're way more ahead in development than the beta that we're playing, or maybe they're really going to go ham and knock it out of the park in the coming weeks.
I don't think it's probably going to be either. We'll see what he says here, but I think it's more likely that some things were purposely misheld or withheld, and we're just not seeing those things. And I think even more of it is we're just in like that first 8% of the game. You're in the first quarter, the first act of one of 3, unlocked difficulties that you would play, not counting adventure mode. So we've seen so little. And I think some of it is going to be expected things that just happen when you're stress testing a game in beta. But let's see.
But I just wouldn't bet on it, and I want to be straight with you guys. Now, we're going to head into character highlight. So I played like 40 hours. The first thing I did is I leveled each of the 3 playable classes to level 25. This
cool looking character, by the way. You can see like these are the dog's barking. So annoying. No clue who she's barking at. The wife's in there with her. I'm just gonna pause for a second. Let's comment on his character look. I mean, kind of evil looking. I'm not a look I'd go for. I'm not a huge fan. I don't like the dress. I'm not a huge fan of the big horns or the mixture of color. I don't know if these just like came this way or if he transmogged and picked these. I can't really tell by looking at the items. I don't know. How unprofessional. Real professional actors would have gotten rid of the dog. I know. Should have. All right, I think we're good. Here, let me back up.
This is my. We're gonna head into what I did is I leveled each of the 3 playable classes to level 25. This is my most successful one.
Okay, so we're looking at his. This is a sorcerer. He's saying maxed out, like he's got like upgrades on his gear. He's got gems, pretty high level, like decent tier gems, and some of them. And you'll notice too that these are all legendaries. Yeah, right. Because I think if you add a affix to a unique, doesn't it stay yellow in color? I don't know. Maybe I can't recall. I don't remember when I did it, if it changed the color of it or not. But let's see where he goes with this.
And I want to give you guys this highlight because it will act as something that you can see and understand in practice. How does this game work? How does a character come together? What is happening on the screen? So we'll just load into this dungeon here. This is a dungeon.
All right, Lil Spoon in chat just told me they changed the legendary color. Okay, so those are probably all custom then.
That I kind of like particularly, and I'll show you how my build works, more or less. The build revolves largely around the skill Hydra. It is a skill you will be familiar with if you've played Diablo 2 or Diablo 3, for example.
I can relate to this.
Put a guy down, 4 heads. The 4th head only spawns if I have nearly full health.
Yep.
And to maintain that and a number of other reasons, I protect my life with barriers. Barriers are kind of like temporary life pools. So I put Hydras down, the Hydras attack stuff, and it works pretty well. And as you will notice, they drop rare items, they drop blue items, and the Hydras, they explode when they get hit, and that's because of the sorcerer-specific mechanic where you can turn skills into passives. Now, they're not like skills that are just used passively, they're used in individual ways, and it's a really interesting system, as I'll show you pretty soon. The characters, the monsters around are going to be scaling with my level, so it is kind of what you expect. The character has a large array of defense.
Okay, so one of his items he has allows him to have multiple Hydras. He's got 2 Hydras there.
The cooldowns, and the character doesn't really use mana. Mana regenerates. I could be casting more abilities to spend my mana, but as you'll see through the rest of the character, it doesn't really make sense to do that. The two Hydras that I'm putting down, well, they really just do enough work. Hey, look at that. We got 2 legendaries. Hooray. Okay. Let's just leave the dungeon. It'll port me out. And I will show you how the character works in practice. So, in terms of the character's abilities, which is where we're going to start, we have this form of skill tree. You have to get 2 points in this part of the tree in order to unlock this part of the tree. Then, I think it's like 5 points later, you unlock this part, then like 3 to 5 points later this part, and so on. It's something like that. There is a Paragon system that unlocks at level 50, apparently. We don't have a lot of details about that, but we'll go into that as we talk about the pros and cons later on. So you have to get a starting skill. The starting skills don't cost any mana, and they're generally fairly weak. I get Firebolt and Arclash. I max out Fireball, and I'll explain in a second why I do that, which unlocks the next set, and I have a lot of defensive abilities, but I don't actually have these spec'd in. You can see rank 1, item contribution 1. That's because my amulet has +1 rank.
+1 rank to all conjuration skills, which I think is kind of cool to have, like something that gives you that wide array. It may not be good for like a min-max build, because you can only carry 6 skills on there anyways, but it's cool for somebody who wants to like maybe play around with different skills. Or, you know, maybe if you have like a couple of like things in conjuration, to have like a couple of skill points added in from one item's pretty nice.
To all conjuration skills and +1 rank to all defensive skills. So you can tell items are really powerful and they actually shape how you build your character. So you're not going to see a situation where use this build. There's always going to be some variations, at least based on the items that you have acquired, because, you know,
variety, good so far.
Getting all the defensive skills for free, I don't have to put a single point in one of them. I can move on to the next cluster. Now, the later clusters also have some passives. For example, Glass Cannon, you deal 12% increased damage, but you take 6% more damage.
I think these passives are like fairly useless for the first 25 levels. I think what you're going to find is as you get to level 50, level 75, like you get way up there, that's when you start filling in your passives to like really enhance these basic abilities that you are taking in to like give yourself extra effects or like really like fine tune a build.
That's a pretty basic one. There's a lot of basic ones, but as you go further down the tree, they get a bit more complicated. We max out Hydra. We have rank 8 Hydra. Rank 5 is the most you can put in by just attributing points to the skill tree from levels and whatnot. And you can increase the rank through items. In terms of damage scaling, you are looking at a 10% increase in damage per level, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. It seems to be 10% every level compounded. And that is not a lot, but it is nevertheless somewhat significant. I actually don't have any of those, but most of my damage is fire, so I have the Pyromancer.
So he says it's not a lot. I think where that's important to have context is games past, Diablo 2, Diablo 3 as examples. He's talked about playing Diablo. You didn't have, like, scaling of damage was different, right? So in Diablo 4, like, mobs have resistance that scale with you, the player. I'm not sure what their calculation on how that scale works, but generally speaking, like, mobs scale with the player. That's why you can have a level 20 player and a level 10 player team up, and both are, you know, give or take the same effectiveness against the mobs. It's not that they're level 20 mobs and the level 10 players just getting like his lunch ate by them. It's not that they're level 10 mobs and the level 20 player can just demolish them. And it's not an in-between where the mobs are level 15 and one player's having a hard time and the other player is having an easy time. The mobs have a resistance to them based on the player that's attacking them. So if you're a level 10 player, you're going to do relative the same damage to that mob that the level 20 player will. Okay. So what you end up with is these abilities do not need to have exponential scaling to keep up with the fact that, oh man, well, Act 2 mobs have twice the health that Act 1 mobs have. And, you know, hell difficulty Act 1 mobs have 8 times the health that the veteran difficulty has. Like, you have this like insane amount of scaling that happens when you have the game run that way, which is why like Diablo 3 has like damage numbers that are in the millions or billions or just something stupid like that. You end up needing to have your abilities scale up exponentially to keep up with the fact that you had the mobs scale up exponentially, and it starts to run away from you. At least that's the way my brain thinks about it. So having it like this just makes it simple. The fact that it scales 10% each time means that my brain doesn't have to calculate these huge, stupid numbers that are hard to math, are intimidating, that are hard to factor in with how they all affect each other. It just keeps things a lot more simple.
When you're healthy, it defines healthy as over 80 through the advanced tooltip. Some areas you can only pick one skill. The ultimate ones, you can only pick one skill. So
that's the only area that's like that.
Just have a quick look at the skills. So Flame Shield can break crowd control, and it gives me a 2-second immunity period. You can see this is the unstoppable and the immune. I have Ice Armor.
Ice Armor is really nice.
Gives me a massive barrier and allows me to break a few things. The Hydra skill, as I highlighted in the instance. Deep Freeze is the ultimate. It gives me complete immunity for 4 seconds. I stand still freeze myself, but this actually does a lot of damage, and it's a very good skill to use on bosses offensively because the boss stands still trying to attack you, and, well, it doesn't do a very good job at that, but it stands still.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we kind of have in context, because I'm thinking this is where a lot of his commentary is probably going to come from. His context is he's run a build for a sorcerer where he runs 2 shields to more or less make himself immune to pretty much any kind of damage. He has found some items that have helped him really max out Hydra to where he can very easily throw down super powerful Hydras and kite with them. He has an ultimate ability that'll help with bosses. And then he has, I'm not familiar with what that other ice ability is. It looks like it's some type of buff. And he has an electric ability that I'm assuming is like some type of like chain, some type of like AoE damage. I guess he'll probably clarify for me. It's hard to remember what these are after such little time of having access to the game.
So your Hydras never miss. I have Ice Blades. Ice Blades are a conjuration, and I only really use them to proc the vulnerable debuff. It's a pretty common debuff, but it's not that common for Sorcerer, so getting 20% increased damage when those do a few hits is very nice. And I have Teleport, which can
Teleport is that one, okay.
To get away. To break crowd control. The main advantage with Hydra is that it does quite a bit of damage, but it's mostly single target. You can place it far away, and effectively, because of this mechanic, you have an invincible totem-like creation. You can actually strike enemies 2 screens away because the Hydra actually hits quite far. Each class in Diablo 4 has its own mechanic that is individual to that class. For Sorcerer, it is
These
the
passives.
enchantment system. So these are the skills, and these are the enchantments here. You have one enchantment that unlocks after doing a quest at level 15, and you have a second one that unlocks when you do a quest at level 30. Now, you can change your enchantment even in combat, so it's a very fluid system, but you need to have a point in the skill, or you need to get the skill from an item in order to do this. Each skill has a very unique enchantment effect. One of the ones that I use for this character, if I'm doing like a boss, is Firebolt. Direct damage from skills applies up to an additional 23% burning damage over 8 seconds. Since Hydra attacks individually, and this is not a lucky hit, this actually increases the damage of my Hydra
Let me hear it.
up to an additional 23% burning damage over 8 seconds. Since Hydra attacks individually, and this is not a lucky hit, this actually increases the damage of my Hydra, though over 8 seconds, by about 40 to 50%. So it's a massive single target boost for very tanky bosses like world bosses. Typically, though, I use the Fireball enchantment effect, and you can see it at the bottom there. You can see it here too. Fireball enchantment. When you kill an enemy, they explode in a fireball for 50% of its damage. So that means that I basically have a corpse explosion-like effect, which for those of you that have played Path of Exile, you know is quite good. And because it uses the damage of the fireball, unlike the Firebolt one, for example, in some cases it will use the skills, in some cases it won't use the skill.
Pretty powerful.
I actually want to max out Fireball because I want the Fireball on kill to do as much damage as possible. And the reason is that Hydra, while it does a lot of single target damage, it tends to kind of get stuck by attacking multiple and random targets around it. It's actually a pretty awful area of effect skill. So the build quite heavily relies on some kind of corpse explosion mechanic like Fireball. It doesn't actually explode the corpses, but you know what I mean. Now, defensively, we have largely incorporated through items. One of the first items that I got, and you can see in orange there, is deal 64% increased damage while you have a barrier active. There is an aspect here. Using a cooldown grants 30% of your maximum life as a barrier for 5 seconds. That's why I'm using so many skills that seem kind of overlapping, too many defensive cooldowns.
You see, this goes into the Asmongold video we watched earlier, where he mentioned like he was like wondering if the game was too simple, didn't have enough complexity to it. And I think he kind of referenced skills and like your character build within that. I mean, it seems pretty complex, right? Like we're talking about a main ability that then gets buffed by a different passive ability, which then takes a different effect that you can get to make that ability better. Like there's all these connecting dots to where if you're like super in tune to games like this, like Kripp is and seems to be, then you can take advantage of those things. Like you can make the game as complex as you need to be, but you don't have to make the game that complex if you're not that type of player.
Cooldowns and all that. I'm really just using them because they have cooldowns, so I can have a barrier on my character all the time. There's also this skill where you gain 5% damage reduction against elites. It's also against bosses and players, by the way. This specific one, not the elite keyword, it's just not labeled properly. If you haven't taken damage from one, up to 50%. This only goes down, and you can see it here that I have 50 stacks. It only drops if I take life damage. So the goal of this character is to always have barriers up to essentially take half damage from the only real like enemies that deal meaningful damage to me, and to have a consistent 64% more damage through the weapon. A quick look through the rest of my gear. I have +2 Hydra on.
I'm going to skip the look through the gear.
This generated quickly. Well, that's going to be full buff a lot of the time in its entirety, and this is actually a very big deal on bosses. So this character is a defense monster because I have almost entirely defensive abilities. It is an offense monster, it is a clear speed monster, and it is pretty easy to play. In terms of builds, if this was a PoE build, this would be a 10 out of 10 in every category build, which is why I will almost certainly be playing Sorcerer on launch.
So, you know, I don't know. I don't want to go too much into like, do we need to nerf or change or do anything specific with different skills? Because I think that's still maybe, you know, that kind of conversation maybe needs to happen from people a little bit more experienced with the particular builds and how these builds play out. But from a novice perspective, you know, some of these things I think are going to need to be fine tuned to where, and this happens in games all the time, right? Games just like this, where the developers can't foresee and calculate every single combination of every single skill with every single item that enhances that skill to see where the end result gets to. if the end result of this is a like god level build that's unbeatable, especially if you like, I don't know if you compare it to PvP, we have to see how it does in PvP, right? Because that's when it really starts to matter. Maybe the build, maybe certain aspects of the build need to be nerfed, and like having a cap and how things combine together or something like that. I don't know, but anyways.
If not this build, I feel like the enchantment system and the very complex parts of it allow for almost certainly some game-breaking mechanics to, you know, go through the cracks. And as I will start to talk about, there are a lot of cracks. Now, this part of the video, I want to talk about the good things about the game, the bad things about the game, just so you guys can understand with full clarity why I think so, why some other people might have this opinion, because not everyone is good at explaining and giving evidence for their opinions. So, one of the best things about Diablo 4 is the graphics. I don't even have my graphics maxed out, because I actually
looks really good.
I guess because it's a beta. But you can see the shadows are super dynamic. Every, you know, the snow, the little leaves are moving, the fire, it has smoke. You can see it's like a picturesque game. It's unbelievable detail. When you're zoomed out like this, you take it for granted. If you don't have good eyesight, you're certainly going to take it for granted. But in terms of overall details, visually speaking, the world environment, the graphics, the theming, it is unbelievably good.
It's kind of funny. Like, see, as he moves around, the shadow's like always behind your character. It's kind of funny how it follows the character around. So it's not like ray tracing or anything like that, but it still looks good.
Details, visually speaking, the world environment, the graphics, the theming, it is unbelievably good. I would say it is, I don't play every game that releases, but it is certainly the best crafted visual game in terms of the gameplay. Forget the cutscenes, I don't care about the cutscenes. In terms of the gameplay that I have ever seen. Okay, I think it is that good.
It's very nice.
Another good thing is combat. Combat is crisp. When you use a skill, it uses the skill. That's pretty nice. The one thing I have with skills is you can only have 6 skills on your bars, probably to accommodate console players, and I can tell you for a fact that that sucks.
I see, we talked about this in another React video, the Asmongold one. I don't think that's a problem. I think it's a good thing. I know a lot of players of the ARPG genre are used to, generally speaking, like having more skills available or being able to have a way to kind of sort of easily cycle through their skills. And I don't think I like that. I think there's a certain benefit to forcing the player to make a decision. It does have its drawbacks too, right? Like you raise the skill ceiling if you have more abilities to use or cycle through, because then people that have APM, actions per minute, that they can take, and they're able to perform stupid numbers of actions, they get a big boost from having more skills available, because they can very easily cycle through all of them, and it gives them a huge advantage in the game over players that don't play that way. I think that's part of like one of the things that makes the game fit the more normie type of player better, and to have a broader appeal, especially when we talk about the fact that this game is going to have a PvP like area to it. We don't know how extensive that is as of this moment, at least not that I've seen anywhere, but there is a PvP aspect to it that gives you some type of reward for going and doing the PvP. So players that dominate this genre and have very fast APM, very high APM, would completely decimate PvP. Think about, again, like I play a lot of different games, right? And one of the games I play a lot of is Fortnite. If I could have, instead of my hotbar in Fortnite having, what is it, five slots plus the pickaxe, if I could have 10 slots to where I have like all these different weapons and items, would it make the game better for higher skilled players with the higher APM? Oh, absolutely it would, because you would have all these different things to use. But for the average player, say like myself, right? I consider myself a pretty average or maybe very slightly above average player. If you give me all those options, I'll try to fill them in. But at the end of the day, it's going to slow me down because I have too many things to sort between. It's going to cause me to have to make more decisions, which I don't really like. Where do I put it on my bar? How do I put it there? What skills do I put there? What order do I put them in? Do they complement each other? Am I going to remember to switch and use them? It creates a lot of anxiety and stress around the game, I think, to have that much to it. And then on the flip side, I do like the fact that you are forced to make a decision. The high APM players, the low APM players, the casual players, the hardcore players, you have to make a decision, dude. Which 6 skills do you think complement each other the most? Use those. The only real downside to it is the fact that you're only encouraged to have 6 skills to choose between, but you can always respec your character or make a different character and experience more of those. So I think it makes it fun too. It's a give and take. I can understand somebody not liking it, but at the end of the day, I like the decision for me personally, how I like to play, and I like the decision for Diablo. Hey, Moldy, how's it going? I understand why they did it. Just in D2R, we had from F1 to F8 for skills. I missed that. Yeah. You have F1 through F8 to change your skills in D2R. In Diablo 2, you only had 2 skills, dude. Original D2, you had 2. I mean, you could like try to switch them in battle if you wanted to. Some players would. But it was pain in the butt. And didn't D3 have 6 skills? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, if you want to think about it in a different way, you can actually bind more skills in Diablo 2, okay, which is, I believe, a 23-year-old game right now, than you can in this game. And obviously, that is done because they want to release a multi-platform game, which, as some...
I really don't think it's because of multi-platform. Maybe it is partially because of that, but again, I like the forced decision. You could bind the skills in D2, but in a D2R, you could like scroll between like whatever, but yeah, that was Diablo 2. That was a lot different game. It was a different time. It didn't have these same systems for multiplayer and things like that. And things have just changed. Things are not the same now as they were before. And players look for different things. And you're trying to appeal to a larger market, which I think this helps with too.
Someone who doesn't care that they release a multi-platform game is a bit unfortunate. But nevertheless, the combat is great. It's not a case where, you know, you think you dodged it, but you didn't dodge it. There's only one thing that's a bit weird. There's a lot of crowd control effects.
There is.
And if you use your dodge to try to dodge a crowd control effect, but you just mistime it and it hits you right after you come out of the stun or whatever, then it just burns your dodge in the direction you initially cast it.
Simple
but
fix.
If that's like 5 seconds later, you might actually be killing off your character and burning your dodge. So, you know, again, a little bit of details. As I mentioned early on, this game is very rough around the edges, but I can see that
I wouldn't call that very rough. I would call that a minor,
really well done.
A minor issue.
They feel very good. The other aspect is character depth. I talked about my character. I showed
a lot of
all
character
these
depth,
different
I
things,
think.
And there is so much more here.
Also, to go back to the 6 skills thing, I think it adds to player replayability or character replayability a lot too. If I could specialize in 9, 10 different skills and like just have this huge bar of skills, the next time I go to make a sorcerer in the next season of the game, I am less incentivized to veer away from the skills set I had before because there's so many of them. I've already used a lot of them and I have so much available that I don't need to. Whereas with this, like I could probably make a few different viable fire builds or ice builds or electric builds or mixture builds between these different things. So it means in season 2, in season 3, in season 4, in season 5, and so on and so on, as I could keep making sorcerers and make them different yet still viable every single time. I think it adds to the replayability of the characters.
Then you might realize, and I think it's important for me to go over this in some detail. So there's going to be 5 classes. Each class has its own subset mechanic, which is incredibly complicated. I highlighted a build, but who knows what the best ability is? When we have 2 abilities, who knows what the best 2 abilities are? You know, will I continue using Fireball? I don't know. I might use Firebolt to stack separate burns and to get a lot of free firewalls, in which case I have to put points in firewalls. But again, some people don't realize this is not a skill tree where you just get everything you want. Okay? At level 50, we're going to get something with Paragons, and we'll go into that in a second. It feels to me like the skill tree is going to be very limiting. You're going to want to get everything, but you can't get everything. And that's when it gets interesting. That's when the decisions start to really matter.
And I like that. Again, that's a good thing. I don't know if he's saying it as a good thing or bad thing here. It kind of like sounds like he's got connotation both ways. But you can't get everything. Is that bad? I don't think that's bad. I think that's good. I think if you could get everything and just kind of like willy-nilly swap between things as you go, I think it would kill replayability of a character. I think once you max one character, like you would just feel like you're just making that character again over and over, and it's just going to get old. It'd be like Diablo 2 making a like at least back in the day when I played, it'd be like playing Diablo 2 and it's making another Boazon. Like you would just make a Boazon that had piercing and whatever the one was called, where it would like fan out the arrows and you would get like life leech, and then you would just make that over and over again because it was just a godly build where you could just spam arrows, insta kill everything on the screen and stay at max life. You know what I mean? Like there's no reason to do anything else. I mean, sure, there's a couple other, like there's Javazons, like there's a couple of like builds, like 1 or 2 builds, but you wouldn't make the same Boazon 8 different times, but that's like the effective thing to do. So it makes you not want to make another Amazon. It would make you want to make something else. So I think the fact that like I could spec 10 different sorcerers 10 different ways, and all of them in their own unique way feel kind of fun and neat and different from each other, and like almost play like a different class. I like that. That's really good. So I think that was a great design choice.
In terms of the item-based stuff, you can see some items have 3 because they're actually rares that I converted into legendaries. If you find a legendary that... Oh, wow, that's a really good drop. So this legendary that just dropped while I was playing earlier, it has the modifier that I actually have on my chest. On my chest, it's imprinted. Now, this one, based on its item level, has a maximum roll. 315 to 630, okay? That's unbelievable. That's actually kind of lucky. Now, this item, its actual stats on itself, they're not very good. I don't care about thorns. I don't care that much about the 2 resist. I get lots of resistance because it scales intelligence, okay? But the legendary ability, I can take that to the occultist and make it into an item.
And then
in fact, the one on my pants, I have made into an item. I can then take a piece of gear. Let's say this chest had a terrible ability, but it had really good stats. I can then take that piece and put the ability that I extracted from another legendary into it, changing its legendary ability. This system is quite deep. It's quite deep because you're going to find many types of items that are going to be useful to you. In terms of rares, rares have 3 stats. People say they're going to have 5 at the end game. I don't know. All I know is what's in front of me. Every rare I found had 3 stats on it. Every legendary had 4 stats on it. You can re-roll 1 stat. It's pretty expensive to do so to try to perfect the item, and it gets more expensive each time you do that. To re-roll a stat on a legendary item is crazy expensive. To re-roll a stat on a rare item is not that expensive at all. So getting a rare with 3 perfect stats that you then imprint a legendary ability, converting into legendary, it's only going to have 3 stats, but it's quite easy to have 3 of the best stats that you're looking for. It is incredibly hard to find a legendary with 4 of the stats that you're looking for. So the item system is a lot deeper than people realize. The aspects...
Hello? Yeah. Can I help you? Okay. Hold on, wife's coming through. You know, you got door popping on me while I'm recording stuff while I'm streaming. So crazy. I like the forced choice. Yeah, I do too. We're gonna pause from the video perspective real quick, so I don't have like the noise in the background. You're the noise. You're the noise. Huh? The wife's barging through. She's barging through. She's got kids to go pick up or something. I don't know. We're going to continue listening to what he's saying, but just to kind of like flesh out some thoughts really quick while we wait. I don't know that it's a, I don't know that it's just, I mean, I guess he's more just kind of give you the information here, not saying it's good or bad thing yet. But oh, that's your alarm. You need to go pick up the kids. But I like that there's a cost to trying to perfect the things, and I think it should get expensive, especially if you like maybe try to keep doing it over and over again, but also like maybe it'll be worth it. So like when you find that, like, let's say you find a piece of gear that you just kind of like a lot, it is good for now. Like, you know, you're not like end game gear yet, like final gear. but you want to like, oh, like I like this stat, but it's kind of low. I want to make it better. Well, I'm just gonna like risk a little bit of gold in a reroll. Good. But when you get to end game and you have that end game loot, like, oh man, I have to grind some gold. I have to whatever to like max out all the stats on this piece of gear and this piece of gear and this piece of gear. It's a different grind. It's just really fun. All right, let's back up a little bit and continue. She was fine until you accused her of making noise. I heard the door pop. The dog was there.
Some of them. So the item system is a lot deeper than people realize. The aspects, some of them can only be found on items, but some of them are found as dungeon rewards.
Which is really cool. There
are different categories to them, and I'll explain why this is relevant. There's utility, which goes on a bunch of stuff, but generally you do that on boots or something. There's resource, which is only rings, but again, these are usually not super powerful. Mobility, amulet, and boots. You'll see that amulets can be almost everything. The defensive ones are really strong, and the offensive ones are really strong.
As they should be.
You can see that the amulet is shared between the two. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that. In effect, there are certain multipliers with their legendary powers that come into play. For example, this here can show up on random legendaries that I find as gloves, amulets, rings, or one-handed
basic skills
or
gain
two-handed
28% plus
I
attack
extract it,
speed.
And then I can choose where I want to put it. But if I put it in a two-handed weapon, it gets double the bonus. So I really need to be careful which ability I want effectively doubled on my character. The amulet can have all but the ring exclusive resource ones, which again aren't that really important. The amulet can have both offense or defense. So the amulet kind of becomes the flexible slot where it really tips the scale. Do you want a more offensive character or do you want a more defensive character overall?
Okay, I don't want to get too much in the weeds with what he's going through here, but like this is all great stuff. Like basically what you're getting out of this or should be getting out of this is the fact that your character is extremely customizable. And the thing that I like to draw it back to for all my more normie players like myself and a lot of the audience here is it doesn't like this is something that you can get into as you go, right? Like this stuff, like this dude's geeking out over it right now, which is cool. Like this is his jam. So like he dives into this stuff right away. You as the normie character, the normie player, it doesn't have to matter right away. It really doesn't matter right away at all. You can go through the game, play through your character, max it out, and not even know about doing any of this stuff. At some point, you're gonna, you know, visit the dude that you can like get the like rip affixes off of your gear because hopefully you paid attention to that quest, or you're gonna notice somebody else did it, or somebody else is gonna tell you, and then you're gonna start playing around with that. At some point, you're going to make your way over to the screen that shows you all of the aspects that you get from completing dungeons. You'll be like, oh, cool. Like, that's actually awesome. I can get more of these abilities that I can like add to my stuff. And you're going to start playing around with it. And the more you play around with it, the more you're going to like really start to get into it. So basically what I'm saying here is that the way they've done these mechanics, I think is really good because I don't think you're going to reach a point in the game, at least not in the first difficulty or probably even the second difficulty, where this is going to be like necessary stuff to do just to be able to progress through the game. So it doesn't like lock up like a normie player out from being able to play. But for normie players that get into the game and like, oh yeah, like I like this. This is fun. Like I want to go through the next difficulty. And like you just keep getting like a little bit further into that rabbit hole. What's going to happen is you're going to keep finding things that you can do. Probably a year in, 2 years into the game. If you're that type of person that, you know, plays several hours a week, you know, a couple hours a day here and there, maybe 10, 15, 20 hours a week or something like that. Maybe not even that much. I don't know. You're going to keep finding these things you can do that pull you deeper into the game. Basically, like Blizzard's kind of made this path for somebody that finds the game in a general sense fun and entertaining. They're finding ways to hook you in more and to get you more and more into the game the further you go, because you're going to keep finding more things you can do to make your character better. Jesse Copeman, thanks for the subscribe. Appreciate you. And I like that. Okay, I want to kind of skip ahead. I want to get to is he about to start talking about Paragon?
P1, so a long time ago.
We're gonna skip into Paragon real quick.
Levels? Well, the short answer is that we don't know. But I found this little article that shows some of the, design. These are Paragon boards, and as you can see from...
So this is going to be another thing that as you get to the end game and as the normie player figures out more about the game, they're going to figure out these Paragon boards. And these Paragon boards, in a general sense, I'm not going to sit through and watch his whole explanation of it, although I would recommend you come back and watch his video because you'll get a more detailed explanation of what I can give you, because this Kripp really knows his stuff. He's really knowledgeable about this stuff. And if you want to like really maximize your D4 play, I would recommend subscribing to Kripp. I'll put a link down to this video and his channel in the description below. But essentially Paragon boards, like you're going to go through and you follow these little chains and you get stats. You add stats to your character to make the character more powerful. You're going to take paths that get you more of the stats that you want. And you have to kind of build out from the center. And you're going to get to certain points in that Paragon board that give you special bonuses or benefits that you may or may not want to go to based on the character build that you're doing. And you're going to get to these special areas where every stat within that range gets a bonus to it as well. I don't know if it's like, I think it's like a multiplier, maybe it's something else as well. But basically any skill that falls within that area, a stat that falls within that area is going to get additional benefit. So this is one of the things they've done to, instead of making it to where you're still speccing new abilities at level 60, level 70, level 80, you're still trying to get more skills. Remember how he's talking about skills earlier? He wishes he had like 9, 10, 12, like you could get more skills on your skill bar to use. So instead of having more skills on your skill bar to use, you're going to end up, it's kind of like, it's interesting the way it's going to work out. This is how I see it playing out in my head. You're going to keep finding different like points along the way where you're building your character. You find like some ridiculously uber loot. You're going to think, oh crap. Well, I have to get Hydras now. I wasn't carrying Hydras before, but now I'm going to do them. I didn't have Death Blow as my, I think that's what it's called, as my Barbarian before. But now that I have this ability to add like doubles its damage or whatever, now I'm going to get Death Blow. Or you're going to start working your way down this board and see like, oh, well, I can really enhance this particular stat. That's going to help me a lot because it's got this one here. I want to change my character again. Or the Sorceress, you're going to see that, oh, I can at level 30, I can add this other passive ability that will make this skill better. I want to change that, right? So essentially what you're going to have, or what you're having, is you're having like things, other complex systems that are building in that are going to make you want to try different builds the next time you build your character, or change the character that you have to a different build. And that experience is probably going to change every single time you play the game, even within the same class, within the same like sorcerer or rogue or whatever it is. You're going to find you're taking a different path on the Paragon board. You're going to find that you're doing different passives. You're going to find that you're taking different skills based on all the different things that are happening. And that's one of the things that I think is going to add to the longevity of Diablo 4.
From the edges here, this is apparently from December 2021, so a long time ago, not finals.
I want to get to some of his final opinion of the game. Let's see what he's talking about here.
Case 100%. In one post, again, fairly early on, so maybe it's not true anymore, they said there's going to be XP potions in the free part of the Battle Pass. But if I'm getting 20 levels, I don't know.
He's talking about Battle Pass. Let's back up.
Premium version of the game, which costs, I think, $180.
I want to make sure there's no...
Other aspect is
there's so many rumors that are flying around here. I'm sure he probably crushes them, but I just want to hear what he says about Battle Pass, and I'm thinking he's going to get into monetization.
The game costs a lot of money.
Let's back up a little bit more.
Zones of quests that you have to go to, and you track one. They're the same color, so you don't even know which quest you're targeting and where you need to go with that. For a game as visually stunning as this,
hold on.
It's this tiny thing. You can't really zoom that in or out, so you have to use the general map key. When you have the map key up, you can't see your health bar on your character. You can't see your character in any way.
You don't need to.
This map screen is horrible.
I don't mind it.
You have two different zones of...
See, I think he's probably just... I think it's just one of those things of being in the genre. Like, if you're used to Diablo 2, Diablo 3, like, you can have, like, mini-map pulled up as, like, an overlay over your screen while you still run around and do stuff. And... if I had to guess why they don't have this work that way, and this is only just my guess, I feel like it takes away from the experience. When I was playing, hey Aggro, how's it going? When I was playing Minecraft Dungeons, when I'm playing D2R, I always have the transparent overlay map up. On one hand, it's pretty useful as the player. I can't lie, like it's not bad. On the other hand, it detracts away from the visual experience, which this game is very heavy about the visual experience, right? It looks amazing. So you're going to detract away from that by having a semi-transparent overlay of the map, and you're going to be more staring at the map and where you're going rather than focusing on the world that you're in the moment that's happening, right? Second, and maybe he'll talk about this. I think he's about to. You can throw down a waypoint, not a waypoint, a marker, and then on your mini map, a tracker, like you have a line to follow to get to that marker. So it's not really that bad. Let's see what else he says.
So you don't even know which quest you're targeting and where you need to go with that. For a game as visually stunning,
so hold on. So I'm gonna go back to this map. You do know what quest they could make it a little bit better, I think. Maybe some like color change or something like that. But you do know what quest you're targeting and where you're going, because you pull out this little quest menu right here. All your quests are listed there. If you click on the quest, it highlights it for you. Now, he doesn't have any right here because I'm guessing he's completed almost everything, right? You can see his completion up here. Like it's very close to max renown. But main story quests are circled in yellow and have that little like yellow stamp thing on the screen. So you know, storyline quests like this one right here. This is an Act 2 storyline quest, but it's there. You know that this is main storyline. Number 2, if you have, sometimes you have like a general area. It'll tell you go in, I don't know how well you can see my mouse, go in this area right here, right? There'll be a circle there. If it's a yellow circle, it's mainline quest. If it's a blue circle, it's side quest, okay? If it's a red circle, it's an event, all right? So you have very clear colors. Now, if you have multiple side story quests and you're trying to go to a specific one, it could be a little bit difficult, because if you click on it over here, what it does is it changes it from one shade of blue to another very slightly, extremely slightly different shade of blue. They could do better on that. If I have like 5 circles here, because I like picking up all my side quests, but I want to do side quest number 2, I should be able to click on that, and then I don't know, this one little circle right here start to like pulsate and glow, or add a stamp to it, or instead of making it blue, make it orange or green or whatever, make it something different, just so it sticks out. That's my only thing. But then once I select that side quest, like if I want to do side quest over here, I can just put a marker on the map and it'll take me there. I no longer need this map up, and the mini map works perfectly fine. Aggro said full screen map, while useful, is very distracting. It is. And I think it's a good idea for them to not give the player that option. Have you ever seen, I don't know how the saying goes, but basically if you give the player an easy path, the player's going to take the easy path 100% of the time, right? Like, you know, I play Minecraft. If you give a player an easy way to get something, you're going to take the easy way to get it 100% of the time. You may complain that it's too easy while you do the easy thing. So me personally, I think the overlay map, I don't like it. Well, I don't want to say I don't like it. I don't think it's a good idea for the overall game. I don't think it's a good idea because it takes away from the visual experience. You handicap yourself a little bit, and your focus is different with that up. But if they gave me the option for it, I would probably have it up on the screen because it makes it a little bit easier. So I think it's good to not always give players that option.
They're the same color, so you don't even know which quest you're targeting and where you need to go with that. For a game as visually stunning as this, the UI is surprisingly weak.
See, I'm sorry, but I very much disagree with Kripp here. I'd like to hear more of his critique of UI, but like we just explained the map UI. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty easy to tell the difference between things. So I don't have an issue with the map UI almost at all, minus those like differentiating between side quests is the only thing like top of my head that could pop up. Maybe if I was in game and experiencing it, maybe I could come up with one other little thing. When it comes to like the character UI, like this screen here, for example, I mean, I don't have any problems with it. Could maybe somebody come up with something that's a little bit better and under, maybe, but like, is this non-functional and non-informative? No, I mean, it works. It works fine. It really does. Same with the equipment, same with your health bar and your power bar. And like, I can't really find a lot of things with the UI that I think is an issue. And where you come into problems and where you get yourself in trouble that a lot of people that complain about UIs are going to find if you push it too much, or if you look at other games. If a game company tries to do something completely innovative and reinvent a UI, like 19 times out of 20, they're going to fail horribly. It's going to suck. It's going to be terrible to the point that it's almost non-functional. Again, look at Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Absolutely horrible, because they felt like they needed to do something different with the UI, and they just made it complete trash. So I would say if it functions good, if you can see things good, just because it's not super different from what you're used to, leave it be, man. Leave it be.
I am not at all pleased with the UI in this game. I think it needs a lot of work.
And again, I just want to add in, I don't want to like sound like I'm trashing Kripp's opinion. Like, his opinion comes from a different place than mine. He's played a lot of like Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Path of Exiles, probably many other of these types of games. So like and he's a super technical player. So like, things are going to matter differently to him, I think, than they matter to 99% of other players. So for that 1% of player, like, I'm sure he has a ton of like things that he would love to see changed. It would make it better for him. But for the like millions and millions and millions of other people that are going to play the game that are more in that normie category, this is good. This is great, I think. Hey, I am Small. How's it going? You're really handsome. Okay, it's a little strange. The map UI is trash. Not gonna lie. I'm not gonna answer that. Innovative, like making my marker on a map smaller than half the other markers. I don't know what you mean. I don't understand what your criticism is there. Is it because you put down a map marker and your map marker is kind of small? I mean, I would say if that is your critique, that's an okay critique, but the result of that critique isn't the UI is trash. The result of that critique should be, hey, like, they should probably just make the map marker a little bit bigger. That's all. But the map markers, I think, are good. You can easily place one down. If you're in a party, you can see your teammates' map marker, which is good. It gives you a path, the most direct path to your map marker. Although I've seen a couple little bugs with that where it tries to like shortcut you through things that they probably need to fix. But I like it. I think it works fine. Hold on. I ain't blowing my nose.
The other aspect is the game costs a lot of money.
It does.
A lot of money. I'm not going to get into all that kind of stuff, but as a Canadian, I believe the cheapest I can buy the game for is like $79, like $80. Yep. It's almost the same US currency, if you're curious.
I think it's the same. That's the same cost as US.
You know, I haven't been playing Diablo for like 30 years to play 4 days after some people. So with like the premium version of the game, which costs I think $110 or $120, I get to play 4 days early on the actual.
It's exaggeration. I don't know what it is in Canadian, but if you get there's what, 3 editions, right? Hold on, let's see if we can find it. Is this the actual? Yeah. Okay, good. I know where it's going to take me. Pre-purchase. Windows, sure. So look, you have standard, digital deluxe, ultimate. Digital deluxe gets you 4 days early access. Select. Digital deluxe, $89.99 US. I don't know what that is Canadian. Maybe 90 or maybe an extra $10. Probably not even that much. So he's over here saying like 120 bucks. It's high. It's a lot of money, but I just wanted to dispel the fact that it's $120. Oh, wrong channel.
Release, and I get a bunch of cosmetics, and I get the battle pass. And if I pay $130, I get all of that, some other cosmetics, and 20 accelerated levels in the battle pass. Now, they've been pretty clear, and they've said that the battle pass has only cosmetic type stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't really know if that is going to turn out to be the case.
They've said this multiple times, and they've recently said it again. I can understand the skepticism, though. I really do, because anybody that's looked at Diablo Immortal has, like, they're scarred for life from trusting Blizzard when it comes to pay to play. Because Diablo Immortal, I've never played it myself. I saw some reviews of it when it came out. Everybody said the same thing. The game is 100% pay to play. It was a different studio. Like, Blizzard had somebody else make that game for them, I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong about that, drop me down in the comments and let me know if I'm incorrect about that. But they had somebody else do that for them, and apparently they did not, like, put in enough oversight regarding that on their end. But the Blizzard developers have exclusively said a countless amount of times that Diablo 4 has zero, let me repeat, zero pay to play elements. You cannot get anything that's not cosmetic via paying any kind of money. Not only that, they've even gone further to say that even, like, through the seasonal leveling grind, where you, like, get rewards for the, like, free rewards for the non-paid battle pass, none of those will even be like, rewards of substance. It is all cosmetic. So if people want to remain skeptical, it's fine, whatever. We can go by what Blizzard has exclusively told us multiple times. They haven't been beaten around the bush. They haven't been vague. They haven't used any vague language about it. They've been extremely direct. So I think it's best to take them for their word. And then, you know what? Not you want to, like, say I told you so, because they do something, they make some kind of dumb decision, change something later, and they add something pay to play, roast them. And I will not hold it against you at all if you do.
100%. In one post, again, fairly early on, so maybe it's not true anymore, they said there's going to be XP potions in the free part of the battle pass. But if I'm getting 20 levels, I don't know.
If they said that before, which they may have, they've gone back on that. No, nothing that enhances XP. Well, I don't know. I guess I can't, like, fully say that, because you can buy the super premium edition of the game and you can, like, level faster through the first 20 levels. I mean, that's not really, like, this huge deal. But I mean, again, you want to throw some skepticism, I'm fine in it, but they're saying that, like, that type of stuff's not going to happen. So we'll see.
Now, they haven't said anything about that in quite a long while, so maybe that's not even the case. You can craft XP potions, so with, like, nothing, they're almost like 5% XP, but, you know, you can. So maybe just getting one more XP potion in the battle pass is effectively meaningless. Yeah, maybe. It's tough to say, but overall, they're really milking this for money, okay?
They're not.
Blizzard's a public company. They're worth, like...
I mean, they're charging a lot for the base game. They will milk additional content for money. I mean, that's what every game creator does and will do till the end of time. But, like, if I hear the term milking it for money, I think pay to play. And that's not they're not doing that. They're just not. They're not doing it.
$70 billion. Microsoft wants to buy them.
If they end up doing it, I'll say that I'm wrong. I have no problem admitting that I'm wrong. As of right now, there's no evidence that they're doing it.
This is going to be a for-profit game. It might not be a pay-to-win game, but it is going to be a for-profit game.
That's any game. And to see, I hate it when people hate that. So, right, like, I keep saying this. I come from playing Minecraft and Fortnite. I'm gonna leave Minecraft out of this, and we'll talk Fortnite because it's the popular example that everybody knows. Fortnite is a pay for cosmetic game. It's a free game, so you can differentiate that between Blizzard. I think it's fine. It's also a way more simple game than Blizzard is, or than Diablo 4 is, especially, like, look at launch versus launch. Okay. But everybody, like, so many people hate on Fortnite for their monetization. Bro, they only let you get cosmetic stuff through monetization. There's zero pay to win. There's zero pay to win in the game. None. Zero. Sometimes they're stupid and they release a skin that, like, has, like, a slightly different hitbox and they end up fixing it later. That's happened a couple times. But Fortnite's not a pay to win game, but people hate on it because they make money. I think if you're doing it in a way that's straightforward with your customers, and you're not in the gaming space, you're not doing so in a way that makes it to where the person that has money has an advantage over the person that does not have money. As long as you're not doing that and it's just this cosmetic stuff, I got no problem with it. I got zero, because you don't need it. It's cool. You might want it really bad. That's their job. They're trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you that super cool looking chess piece that like you're just dying for to have on your character. And if they do such a good job at designing that cool looking chess piece to the point where you spend $10 on it, that's your decision, dog. It's your decision. The potions vendor will let you craft 5% XP gain with one particular resistance for 30 minutes. Of course, the game is for profit. Yeah. How dare they try to make money on their game? Exactly. Like I get like it's a lot of money. Like we have people in the community here. I'm not going to like call anybody out, but you know, they're like, hey man, like it's a lot of money. It is. And that's a decision that people are going to have to make if it's worth that money. But at the very least, there's an upfront cost. You know what that upfront cost is. You've got to try out the game for free. So hopefully you did that. And you just got to make the decision. Is it worth the money or is it not? Is it worth saving up for? If you have to save up for it, or is it not? I think it would be a good idea for them to, what they did with the open beta, I think it'd be a great idea for them to make that permanent once the game releases. I think anybody and everybody should be able to play through the first 25 levels through the first act of the game in the like entry level difficulty. Everybody, let everybody do it. So then if somebody is thinking of investing $80 in the game, they can try it out and they could, you know, have fun playing it. And either they decide it's for them and they'll buy the game, or they will decide it's not for them and they won't. I think ultimately that position would benefit Blizzard and would lead to more game sales. That's just my thought. It would lead to more stress on their systems because they're going to have servers to accommodate these free people playing. But 100%, I think it would net benefit them. I don't know if they've run that cost analysis or not, but that's just it. I tried the game and did not think it was worth the price, so I will not be buying it when it releases. Maybe if it goes on sale. Okay, so yep, see, that's the decision that Moldy got to make. If they are comparing it to D2R, which launched at $30, or I think you can get it bundled with D3 for $40, comparing it to that, then yeah, it's a lot of money. But it's brand new, all brand new AAA games. Yeah, all brand new AAA games are going to cost $70. This one's even more expensive. They've added that Blizzard tax of $10. All right, let's continue. Get back on track.
Okay, people criticize like Lost Ark because it had like early access, but Lost Ark when it came out, it was free for everyone. So yeah, there is that. If this game is going to be successful, it's going to have seasons. I don't imagine you're going to buy seasons, but if this game's going to be that successful, it's going to have expansions. And let me tell you, whatever you're paying for the game now, you're probably paying about that much for any expansions that Diablo IV is going to have. And as a Canadian video gamer on the internet, like myself, it doesn't really bother me that I'm paying $100 to play this game. But understandably, for people around the world, that is not even close to the same. So yeah, that actually does really suck. One other...
I generally agree with what he's saying. It is a lot of money to spend. I just don't agree with the... any connotation to pay to win, I don't agree with, but it's a lot of money for the game. Should they charge less for the game, knowing that they're going to make money on the battle pass or whatever you want to call it through like their seasonal content and stuff? I think they should. I think it'd be a smart thing to do. Maybe they'll lower the price after launch, and those of us that paid for it at first like got suckered into paying more, whatever. But yeah, if they could cut the cost down significantly later on because they're making a lot of money on the battle pass, that'd be a good idea.
Part that I think is extremely weak and really needs to be addressed immediately is dungeon mechanics. The endgame, as far as we know, as far as they've talked about it, has to do with nightmare sigils, which is effectively upgrading the dungeons that you already run as you're playing through the campaign with like modifiers.
We have not experienced this yet, by the way.
Very much like maps in Path of Exile. You make them harder, they get like higher level mobs and all that, and you get better loot or something.
Yep.
I would imagine anyway. I would hope so. Now, what that essentially means is that you're going to be running the dungeons that you're kind of running right now, just with higher difficulties, maybe significantly higher difficulties.
Yeah.
While the difficulty might be good and all, the actual mechanics in the dungeons are horrible. They are not fun. And if it is the core of the endgame of Diablo IV, we don't know if that's 100%, but I think it might be based on what we've seen, and I'll give you evidence for that. That's very concerning. It's very concerning because there are mechanics like kill all the monsters before you can get to the boss. All the monsters. We're not talking about Den of Evil here, okay? Where you have a character with no abilities that you really need to kill any monster you find in your way to get a few levels for you to actually have a character, and Den of Evil has like 35 monsters in it, including one at the end that usually drops rare and magical items, okay? No, we're talking about full-on dungeons that have like 300 monsters, in some cases that spawn other monsters as part of their abilities, and you need to kill every single one until you can access the boss. I hate that. And it's not just a preference. You might think it's like, oh, you know what, Kripp? I like Den of Evil. That's great. That's good for you. Here's the thing about that. We're talking about likely the endgame content. These are not going to be easy mobs in the endgame content, I imagine. Like Diablo 3 is not really easy in the endgame. You play it at your own difficulty level, right? So who knows? It might be something like that. So what if you kill 295 monsters and then you encounter a rare that you can't kill? You know what you're going to do? You're going to leave the dungeon. And then you're going to remember this video. And you're going to remember that Kripp told you that the mechanic sucks.
I mean, I get where he's going with it. I wonder if it's not maybe a little bit overstated. It could play out his way. I know like Diablo 2, I think Aggro told me this before. Or I kind of even remember from like back in my days of playing D2. Like you had some mobs that were like invulnerable, they're unkillable. Well, obviously, like common sense would probably tell you, unless they really screw it up that bad, that that's not going to happen because you can't kill them and you have to kill all the mobs to unlock the boss. But I mean, I get the general sentiment. If you have a really big dungeon and you have to kill all the mobs to complete the dungeon, then that could kind of suck. I've had several of those instances where we go into a dungeon and you have to kill all the mobs. It never really felt that bad. The mobs, when you have those, it tells you how many are left. So you're not like wondering how many are left. And it marks them on the mini map with a red dot. So if you get anywhere close to them, you know where they are. And at least the dungeons that I experienced that in, to the best of my knowledge and remember my memory, they weren't like overly big. Like they weren't like they weren't like, I don't know, like the size of like the final boss dungeon, the final fight where you go through like so many different layers. Like they weren't huge dungeons. And that's one of a lot of different types of dungeons, right? So maybe you have that come up to be like a sigil based dungeon 1 out of 10 times. And I would just say that if you come across that and you just don't like it, then you can just skip it and not do it. I don't know. I don't know how that mechanic works. I would say it would be a good idea for them to maybe make it so you can like reset the sigil, or so it takes you to a different dungeon or something. I don't know the way around it. If it's easy enough to get new sigils other ways, like you don't get yourself stuck to where, okay, well, I don't want to do this one where I have to clear the mobs and now I can't do dungeon runs anymore. That would be kind of crappy. But if you have a way to like reset the dungeon by going in and out, or by like paying something to reset the sigil to where it assigns it to a different dungeon, or just it's easy-ish enough to just get another sigil, and you can just decide that you want to skip that 1 out of 10 dungeon that's like that, then I don't see the problem. So maybe it's an issue, but also I think fairly likely it's not an issue. All right. Let's see. Aggro said if the difficulty is too hard, then turn the difficulty down. Easy as that. There are other YouTubers that say the game is too easy currently. Yeah. I had to leave the dungeon when I couldn't kill the den mother. Oh, well, I left because I couldn't do it. I didn't get butthurt over it. Yeah. It gives you a reason to get better. Yeah. So I would say, and then he gives the example of like, well, maybe the mobs are too hard there and you can't kill them all, like in the end game. I mean, I don't see that. I see that could be a thing for lesser experienced players that haven't optimized their loot, which if they're doing sigil runs, they're probably at the stage where they understand they need to get better loot, and that's what they're trying to do. So again, if they come across that scenario and they've gotten themselves into an unwinnable situation in that regard, then I would just say, as long as they have a way to just say, I'm just not going to do this sigil run. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm going to reset the dungeon, or I'm going to like reassign, like reset my sigil, or I can't use the sigil. I'm just going to toss it out and I can just get another one and use another one. Then I don't see the problem. I don't think it's that bad. I was able to kill it on the sorcerer though. Hydra for the win. Yeah. Same here with the den mother aggro. Left and moved on. So yeah, I don't agree on the sentiment from Kripp here, but I do understand in general where he comes from and why it should be a thought.
That mechanic sucks. There's a colossal difference between killing every monster in a 300 monster dungeon and killing 95% of them. I don't know why a system of just killing 95%, why is that not good enough? Just have us kill most of them to proceed in the dungeon.
Okay. I mean, is that his like recommendation for how to fix it? Just have it to where people just have to kill most of them instead of all of them? I don't know if that's his critique. If it is, then I mean that's okay suggestion. Like you came out with a suggestion, that's good.
A lot of dungeon mechanics are like, they have like 2 pedestals. I think one of the dungeons has 3 pedestals, and you have to go in different corners of the dungeon to kill a mob or just retrieve an item off a shelf. And then you take that item and you put it back on the pedestal. The item is kind of on your character. Actually, you can usually see it on your character, which is a really cool thing, going back to the amazing graphics and image-based design in the game. But you can't hold more than one of these items. So what often happens is you backtrack the entire dungeon more than once over.
No.
More than twice over in some cases. And each time you interact with an object, it is interruptible. And it takes like 5, 6, 7, 8, it takes like many seconds. It takes like 8 seconds to pick up a jewel from a guy that you killed. And it takes 8 seconds to put the jewel on the pedestal, okay? You're like, Kripp, well, who cares, right? In this game, there's ore. Do you know how long it takes to mine ore? 0 seconds. Okay? It takes 0 seconds to extract metal from a rock.
Okay. This one's hurting me a little bit. I got some feedback here. So, thing number 1, in these dungeon instances, anytime I've ever seen, you come up to a central area, okay? And that central area is the pedestals, boxes, whatever, the things that you have to put the boxes on. You go one direction to get one, you come back, you place it. You go the other direction to get the other, you grab it, you come back, you place it, door opens. They're not in random locations to where you're going to get one and it's like still be like exploring around the dungeon to different areas and then you, oh, well, I just ran across the other one. I can't pick it up. What the heck? That's not how these dungeons are laid out. It's just not. That's not how they're laid out. Not that I've seen. I mean, I'm sure I didn't run anywhere near as many dungeons as Kripp. So if I'm wrong, I'll eat crow here. But I mean, I probably ran like 40, 50 dungeons. Like I've ran that instance of dungeon 5, 10 times. That's how it worked every time for me. Second, the animation. I don't know why he's comparing it to ore. It has nothing. That literally has nothing to do with it. That has nothing to do with it. The game's not trying to be realistic by how long it takes to mine resources versus pick up a box. Those are 2 totally different things. It's resource gathering. Something very basic like picking berries or getting ore versus picking up a box. You know why they do that? They do that so you can't just see the box, run in, throw it on your back, and run out without killing the mobs. What they're trying to prevent you from doing is they're trying to prevent you from going into this area where they intend for you to have like a little bit harder like mob encounter to get the box. They're preventing you from going in and grabbing the box and running out, running to the other side of the map, grabbing the box, running out without killing anything, putting the boxes down and going on. They're trying to keep you from speed running it too much is what they're doing. I don't know. I don't understand that. I don't understand the beef here. I really don't. And again, when you bring them back, I can't remember a time where they had like mobs that were like attacking you or spawn in when you're putting the things down. I don't think that happened, but basically they just don't want you to go grab stuff and bring it back and sit it down. So they have an animation of 5, 6 seconds, whatever it is. And then if you get hit during that, it's interrupted and you can't pick it up. I think that's good game design is what I think that is. I think that's good game design. Aggro said, how many dungeons were there where you had to kill 100%? It wasn't that often. The desert have talked about backtracking. That's been brought up, and they were working on the layout of dungeons so that it gives you alternate paths in the dungeons. Or okay, plus it's more than 4 seconds. Okay.
In the ground when you're running around the world, and it takes you 8 seconds to drop a jewel on a pedestal.
Yeah, and it's not 8 seconds. It's like 3 or 4.
by any form
like
of
grossly
damage,
exaggerated.
Okay, and it gets even worse. In one case, you have to click on 2 levers, and I have a really hard time actually seeing where the levers are.
Good feedback there. They're a little hard to see. Like they should be a little bit larger and like have like a shiny glow to them or something like that. Good feedback.
And if you go to the levers, there's like traps under them. So you're just like trying to time traps to click on like a 7-second lever to open the door to the boss.
It's not a 7-second lever,
what
but
is
okay.
that? How is this fun? People were telling me in chat that those traps actually did a lot of damage. One guy lost his character to trap damage from trying to click on a lever. I can tell you that is not going to be a fun experience.
I don't know what he's talking about there. I don't remember experiencing traps under a lever. I think I only ran across the lever thing like once, maybe twice. And I remember them being a little small, hard to click. I don't remember traps. So I can't really comment on that. If that was the case, I mean, that kind of sucks, especially for a hardcore character. But as long as you have ways around it, or you know that, hey, dude, there's traps under here. Like I kind of have to like duck in and out to trigger it and get out the way. I don't see the problem.
Experience for hardcore characters, okay? The bosses themselves. The bosses are heavily repeated in the beta. That might just be the beta, okay? I hope that is just the beta. There's not that many monster types from my experience. There's a massive overworld and all that, but it's actually not that many monster types.
It felt repetitive going through. You had like the imp dudes, the werewolves, the like ghostly like dudes, the skeletons, the like vampire bats, the spiders, the like thief like characters. I feel like I'm missing one or two. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not stupid repetitive. And also it's the first act. I don't think this is a great critique. I don't think it's a critique large enough to need to be addressed.
The abilities the monsters
I don't think it takes away from the game.
Have are often not very interesting. One of the abilities, it binds you and you can't move your character for like 8 seconds while it's dealing damage.
I think he's exaggerating again with the time, but we're in Act 1 of difficulty 1. Go back and play Diablo 2. That's all. Just go back and play Diablo 2 again and count for me how many abilities you see these mobs have and the variety of the mobs. Oh, I forgot, the tree dudes is another one. You have like a number of like bigger like more elite like mobs. You have decent variety. It's way more Diablo 2. I can't remember Diablo 3 enough to comment on it. I'm imagining it's in line with that, if not more.
To you. Not all characters have crowd control breaks like sorcerers do. Okay, that's really crappy. Like
the only thing that's crappy about it, I think, is the fact that like every character should have a skill that they can take to break or reduce crowd control, whether it be passives, maybe like the barbarian, for example, or the rogue should have like passives to reduce crowd control, whereas other ones have like breaks for crowd control. I think that's a character design thing rather than a game design thing. If you want to like bring it down to a critique that I think they could do something with.
Like, I don't know. I didn't like that. In general, I've also felt that there's almost no regard for melee on these encounters. And I've kind of been saying that Barbarian is bad. Now, we only have up to level 25. And of course, if you grind like crazy and have a completely decked out character level 25, which you will not do leveling up, by the way, well, yeah, okay, you might have a pretty easy experience playing Barbarian. But the boss fights are not at all melee friendly. Barbarian has Fury, which unlike...
The boss fights for melee, I got a Barbarian at 25. I didn't have any boss fights that I felt were too difficult to manage. But what I will say is they were less fun. Well, no, I'm not even going to say that. You know what? I first of all, I don't think I would put it to melee versus non-melee. I think they gave more like the sorcerer is just so well made. And the Necro is just kind of easy mode. Boss fights encounters with them where they're kind of fun and somewhat easy. Although with the Necro, if you relied on corpses and you didn't have ways to generate new corpses, it was a bit of a pain. But the Rogue, I did a melee build Rogue. I didn't get it to 25, so I can't speak for all the bosses, but I fought a few of them, right? I think I got up to like 16 or something with it. They were fun. because of the way that I use my character. My melee build was like a lot of like in and out and throw down a trap and caltrops out and, you know, dash back in and do the stabby and then caltrops out again. And then I had my base ability, which was the throwing knives that I would use while I like dodged. Like it was fun. I guess a lot, like some of it was like a mix of range and non-range. The Barbarian, I didn't play the Druid, so I'm not going to speak to it. The Barbarian wasn't as fun, but I didn't struggle necessarily with any of the boss fights. I don't think I remember dying as the Barbarian once, but it didn't have that fun factor. And I think that comes from what he's maybe it's like it's part of his critique. I think it hits it home. I just think he goes the wrong direction with it, just in my opinion. Is with the Barbarian, you have to build up rage, which is kind of boring because it builds up a little slow, and then using the rage doesn't feel fun. You can't whirlwind a boss. It doesn't do any damage. I had the like the death blow ability or whatever. I mean, you got to use it once and you have to wait like 10 seconds. It does a decent amount of damage, but it's not very fun. You just don't have like super fun abilities on the Barbarian. I think it's just a knock against the design on the Barbarian, and they need to fix some stuff with it, I think, is ultimately what it boils down to. And I would imagine that critique also applies to the Druid.
Every other character in the game, their resource goes down if they're not in combat, regenerating it through their generators. So with a Barbarian, you have to deal with the boss mechanics that are very anti-melee, attack to generate fury, and then use that fury to use and launch your...
Oh, and by the way, I didn't find it that bad to dodge boss attacks because I would use leap to get away if I needed to get far away. Or like a lot of bosses have very directional attacks and they have their tells that they're going to do before they use it. And I would just use whirlwind and just like kind of just go through the boss and get to the other side of him to move out of the way of the attack. Or you can dash. So I didn't have that much problem with that part.
Your biggest attacks. The other characters, they just use their attacks from range, and they don't have to generate the resource. What does that mean? I feel like the characters are actually more or less in the same ballpark. We'll talk about that in a second. In terms of like target dummy DPS. Stationary, no reaction target dummy DPS. But if you consider the real world example in Diablo 4, some of these boss fights have like, at best case, 50% DPS uptime, because you just can't be near the boss. You can't do anything other than run with your character. A class like a sorcerer, where the mana is regenerating while you're running.
And I think that goes to character design again. You need, like the Barbarian, I don't think has anything for ranged attack, right? Not that I can think of. There's no ranged attack. Rogue has a ranged attack. Necro has ranged attack. Sorcerer has ranged attack. I don't know what Druid has, but again, I'm gonna leave Druid out of it. So just like I feel like the Barb needs like some like a throwing axe ability or something like that, or like something where he just like he like chucks his weapon as like a big blow, like a big single blow ability where he like chucks like his two-hand sword or hammer or something at it, or like a more like speedy one where he's like throwing axes or whatever at character, like something like that. He just needs a ranged attack is what he needs.
You actually lose less than half your damage if you have 50% damage uptime.
And then have that generate rage so you can use your other abilities.
Because you can actually use heavier mana spenders in the window where you can do damage. A Barbarian that loses their primary resource while they're not gaining it from using generators actually loses more than half their damage. So while, again, at level 25, the ballpark damage is more or less in the same ballpark, let's say, the real damage that you end up doing on the encounters while doing the mechanics, the Barbarian falls off a cliff, and not just in terms of numbers, it's just a miserable experience chasing monsters that run away from you, dealing with monsters teleporting away from you, deciding on whether you're going to die in the puddle. The boss constantly spawns directly under it, and then reconsidering why you're not playing a class that has an ability that can be used from like 3 pixels away from the boss.
Yeah, most of that's fair. I think I mentioned this in the Asmongold video. I think the Barb's movement's okay. Like it could maybe be a little bit better, but like everybody has the dash. That's whatever. But leap was like decent for me to get away from mobs, and it does damage. But could the Barb use something else? Like maybe default have a second dash, or maybe it's dash that like goes further distance or something. I don't know. Like it could use something else for sure.
Right. So yes, the melee viability is very poor, and in the beta it's especially true for Barbarian. I do want to add a little bit here that this has a little bit of a detail to it. The mechanics that I mentioned in the game here, so we talked about, like, you know, weapons have like a doubling of the effect if they're two-handed weapons. The Barbarian thing, you know, Barbarian doesn't get free passives from their skills like the Sorcerer does. The Barbarian gets an arsenal system where they always use specific weapons for specific skills, and they end up using two-handed weapons and two one-handed weapons. Now, if we look at the aspect configurator, the one-handed weapons are treated as if like they have one slot, but the two-handed is kind of like a double slot. So effectively, a Barbarian has 3 more item slots worth of stats and legendary abilities.
Okay,
and
no, he's not. I was
probably these are all multiplier
just hoping he
effects.
wasn't going to get into the weeds there.
I would bet that even though it will take longer to actually gear out a Barbarian, there's far more abusive multipliers and combos that you can work with as a Barbarian. The depth and like the absolute peak maximum performance of Barbarian probably is not realized in this beta whatsoever as a result of that. And it does make for potentially the case that Barbarians might do more damage than the other classes at high level. However, what I argue is that the game mechanics are so stacked against, you know, gritty melee combat that unless Barbarian does like 5 times the damage of a Sorcerer is still going to be better off just...
I think this is where, like, you need more, there needs to be more defensive maneuvers or defensive abilities in the game. The Barbarian, for being a Barbarian, like, he's not super squishy by any means, but he's squishy for what he is. So, like, if you're not going to, like, inundate the Barbarian with movement abilities and range abilities, then the Barbarian needs stuff that helps him stay alive better. The shouts that he has for, like, buff, like, for overhealth and weakening enemies, stuff like it needs to be greater. He needs more passives to help him with that. He needs, like, like, something needs to be tied to rage. There needs to be some other things that the Barbarian can do to make it to where, like, dude can just stay in there and get beat on a little bit by the boss, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, oh, the boss is about to do his big ability that wipes everybody. Let me hit this ability right here, and I'll be able to survive it and keep wailing on this dude. You know what I mean? Whereas the Sorcerer may be dodging or teleporting away, and the Rogue is going to be dashing out of the way, and, you know, the Necro's got all of his skeletons and stuff in there, and he's kind of out. Like, all of those characters have that. They can do that. The Barbarian, I know he's not a Paladin, so you don't want to, like, if you're going to add a Paladin later, you don't want to, like, intersect with that too much. The Barbarian needs some way to short term be able to withstand, like, those massive amounts of damage that are going to be coming in. And I think that's like just another area where it lacks.
Just playing this game. And that kind of really sucks. Another big con is hardcore.
But this, let me just like highlight this. This is class balance. Any game that has classes, I've never seen a game that has classes and didn't have like misbalances in the game that they had to address. It's going to happen. You got to expect it.
Now, a lot of people are like, hey, Kripp, are you going to play hardcore? Are you going to world first? First of all, I don't know whether there is the world first. What am I going to world first? Like, max level or something? Is that even a challenge? The campaign? Is that even a challenge? You know, this isn't Jay Wilson coming out and telling us that it's the hardest game they ever made, then they doubled it. You know, if they say that, then yeah, then that gets me really excited, and then yes. But nothing like that has been said. Nothing ambitious has been said about this game, in my opinion. Nothing has suggested that there is world firstable content from what I have heard so far, and that might change in the future. But yeah, when Diablo 3 came out, I didn't play hardcore. I played softcore to learn the game, to have an idea if it can and is worth attempting on hardcore. Then we decided that it was, then we did it. In this game, I don't know, maybe I'll play hardcore, but I'm certainly not starting hardcore. One part of hardcore that, again, in the beta, and again, it's not that hard to fix, but it does need to be fixed. Diablo 4 has no grace period. When you go in a dungeon, there's no grace period zoning in. When you come out of a dungeon, there's no grace period zoning out. Not only are there regularly mobs at the entrances of both the inside and overworld of a dungeon, but it's an open world. Other players can drag dangerous monsters literally on top of you as your hard drive struggles to load into the overworld.
Sure.
Now, forget your hard drive. You want to play this game on release? This game had issues in the first beta with extremely limited people actually trying to play it.
He says extremely limited. There's a lot of people playing, dude. A lot of people. But it did have its issues, so hopefully they've learned a lesson.
I would say that you are crazy if you're going to even attempt to play hardcore in the first week of the game. The chance that you die to zoning or server crashes or server lag and instability are much higher than the best case you might even imagine. I think your character is
probably
going
right.
to die the most unfair way possible.
Probably right.
And you don't want to be that guy.
He's probably right.
So unless they have grace periods and significant account for them, hardcore is not really viable in my opinion. Another aspect is the general balance of things. There are so many skills and so many aspects to them. You know what? I'll give you another example.
Ton.
It feels like balance is not finely tuned. Okay.
Is it ever on
look
launch?
Your core skills deal 4% increased damage when cast above 50 mana. Right? To constantly cast core skills and be over 50 mana is really hard to do. It's second in line after additional mana. 3 additional mana?
Yeah,
Really?
It's out of whack.
Core skills are generally not even the best skills. You can get 3% damage, or even, what is that, 6% damage for 1 point. This is 4 on 1 core skill. If you level a core skill up 1 level, it gains 10% damage. So in a realistic case, you'd have to be using like 3 simultaneous core skills on a regular rotation for this to maybe be worth it, and you need to watch your mana while you're doing it. It's just like...
Agreed.
Yeah, I think they didn't really like very finely tune the numbers on these things. And a lot of people have kind of realized that, you know, playing the first few levels of Sork and Rogue and Barb.
Yeah, I think that's it's normal class balance stuff. They're going to fix these things. One would hope anyways. Imagine hardcore with the Butcher spawning on you. Oh yeah, terrible. I thought the passive skills were pretty lackluster. I didn't put points into any of them really. Yeah, I don't think you would. I think the passives are like, those are like post level 50 like stuff, like point spenders, you know what I mean? Like you're going to spend your first 25 points in your first 25 levels getting skills and things that enhance those skills. You're going to spend the back half of your points on passives that complement the skills that you've already maxed out or whatever.
Some of the stuff just feels so off. So when you have the level of complexity of the character design and the item system that I hope I've convinced you of, when you stack that up to all the crazy possibilities we'll probably experience in the Paragon system, we have a system that has an unbelievably large amount of variables.
Yes, which I'd like.
It's a case where I don't think there is any like small group of testers that could really iron out the game.
Yep, 100%.
What's going to happen is this. The game's going to come out, and the community is going to bounce ideas off each other, work together, and some people are going to figure out these combinations, these item builds, these character builds that are not going to do like 50% more damage than others. They're going to do like 100 times more damage than others. And even though there's this
probably
really
a little exaggerated,
rich
but okay,
sense of,
I'm with you
the game
generally.
Overall, I feel like because the values are not quite finely tuned and a bit all over the place, there is going to be like 1 or 2 builds that's going to be vastly superior for every class, and eventually everyone is going to spec into it, which is...
I don't think so. Well, I think as that happens, I think that's going to be one of the things where you can't predict with this level of complexity to the game, like this many variables, this many things to do. Like you can't, it's hard to predict or just know from a developer standpoint, like, how are people really going to mix these things? Like, how is this going to combine with this, combine with it? Like, there's too many possibilities, and it's kind of hard to predict them all. So, yeah, you kind of do in a way. You're forced to. There's no way around it, really, unless you make the game, like, ultra simple to predict what players are going to end up coming up with. And all you can do is you can have like a team that keeps out, like looks out for stuff like that, for balanced stuff, and like as things are submitted, as metas come in, right? We are like, every game ends up having a meta where like everybody like that cares about like min-maxing, like they go to this, and those things will be found, I'm sure, and you got to adjust them when they're overpowered, and then like tilt the scales up to things that aren't being used. I'm pretty sure they'll be tracking this stuff. They'll know what percentage of players take this, that, and the other thing, and they'll buff things that are never used, and they'll nerf things that are overused to the point where they're OP.
It's a bit of a shame. Complex systems require really finely tuned management of the values, and I'm not really seeing that in this department. Another part is bosses, notably world bosses. So world bosses work this way. 12 players in the area basically challenge the world boss. So you're like, hey, Kripp, that seems okay. World bosses are pretty epic. They're pretty cool. A lot of people said that in the beta, it was the highlight of their gameplay. And you know what? I think there are points to agree with that, other than the fact that barbarians really just died a lot. And I never died on the world boss. It's super easy. 2 screens away. Hydra, 3,000 damage per second. Literally 2 screens away from the boss. Not a single mechanic could even reach me. And like in one case, I did the world boss while eating, while playing Battlegrounds. 3,000 DPS. Okay, so yes, it is extremely unfair to some classes, but it's more unfair and has a tragic design flaw. Parties in Diablo 4 are 4 people.
Yep.
And there's no ways to extend that. So if you want to do a world boss,
yep, yeah,
you
I've seen this critique.
Can get 3 of your most powerful friends, you bring your most powerful character, and you go to the world boss area, the timer ticks down, and you have like 8 random people around.
Yep.
If those 8 random people around are like low-level people who don't know how to do the fight, well, obviously Blizzard's going to account for that. So unless there is a system for like maybe linking 3 groups or a larger group or like a raid group or a battle group, which does not exist in the beta anyway, I will say with confidence there is a 0 chance that world bosses are aspirational content in Diablo 4.
He takes things so far sometimes. I don't think that's true at all. I think that you're going to have instances where it does suck, and I think you're going to have a lot of instances where like you get to do it and it plays out fine. But I think to say that there's 0% chance that it's fun content, aspirational content, something that you look forward to doing, that's a grossly exaggerated statement.
I think world bosses effectively force you into looking for a raid system like in World of Warcraft, and they're not going to make the hardest system when 2/3 of the challengers of a world boss are literally random. So that is a terrible mechanic.
No,
there's been a lot of mechanics that don't work very well in terms of the shape.
I agree they could probably find a way to do it better, like some type of like matchmaking or I don't know, something. Level limit. You have to like meet a minimum level requirement to go into it. Like they could probably do some stuff, but I would not go as far as saying it's terrible.
Shared overworld. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to have everyone do any part of it that they want, which is kind of like a sense of freedom, but there is a lot of issues with it. This problem, I think, will remain with the game. This is one of those problems that is very heavy to balance, very heavy to move around, very, very difficult to change because it's so core to the game. So I think it will always plague Diablo 4. And I'm talking about the forced multiplayer level scaling party system. What happens is you're going to go in whatever zone it is, Act 1 is, and you're going to do it on like a level 3 character. You're going to notice that your level 3 character one-shots the bears. And then you're going to notice that like a level 40 character is beside you, and he's actually struggling with the bears. He kills them in like 3 hits, even though he's using like stronger abilities. You're going to have cases where a level 3 character is going to be beside a level 40 character, and the level 3 character is going to be stronger in that zone than the level 40 character. All the mobs scale with your level simultaneously. It's a very complex system, and that's why I don't think it will change. I don't think it will be scrapped because it's too core to the actual game. But basically what happens is the monsters just scale to your level. And you might be thinking, hey, that's okay. Here's one of the main consequences. I don't want to take up this video. I could probably talk 30 minutes on this subject. But the main consequence is that when you level up, you are always weaker. Okay, unless you just unlock like your ultimate ability, except for like 3 or 4 levels where you like unlock the next tier of abilities as you're leveling. Unless that happens, when you level up, the instant you level up, your character will always get weaker. Because 1 point on the skill tree at most is 10% damage, and my hands-on understanding is that the monsters gain more than 10% health. So how does your character get stronger? Well, oftentimes it doesn't. Okay, you're kind of just trying to keep up with the level scaling. It's not like a traditional, Diablo 2 style game where, oh, this zone is too hard, I'll just go to a lower level zone. There is no lower level zone. You can like drop the difficulty of the world and probably get like crappy drops in experience. Or you can just, I don't know, try to fight through it anyway. I personally hate that. I think it's a terrible system.
I think he's got some fair concerns, but hold on, what is Agar saying? Oh, hold up, hold the phone. Does Prowl have 190 YouTube notifications? What are you talking about? Okay, anyways. So I think he has some like well-founded concerns, but I think his take on it is not good at all. This is a different system. It is. I don't know what other games may or may not do it. I don't know if any that do. I haven't experienced any that do. Maybe some others do. I don't know. But I think this system is really good, because what this system has allowed them to do is it's allowed them to make the entire game at whatever difficulty that you're playing on accessible content to go back to and to still be a fun challenge and meaningful to do. This is why you can be in Act 5 and have a level 50 character, but have something to go back to at the beginning of Act 1, a dungeon or whatever, and it still be something fun and challenging and worthwhile to do. Because the alternative is you get to max level, you stay in Act 5 or Act 4. I think I said Act 5 before, but you know what I mean. You get to max level, you stay in Act 4, you never leave it. That system sucks, because you end up experiencing 5% of the game for 99% of the playtime that you have in it. That system's terrible. With the way they're doing it, you end up being able to experience 100% of the game 100% of the time. And for a game that they've spent a lot of time making look really freaking good, I think that makes sense. Now, that doesn't mean that his actual critique is wrong, though, because I do think it's got some points to it. Because yes, you can have a very low level character be able to crush mobs while standing beside a very high level character that cannot crush said mobs. And the way he's made it sound is that it's hopeless, and this is just how it is and how it's going to be, and it's going to be terrible, and it's going to. I mean, I don't want to like straw man him and say that he's saying that it's going to ruin the game, but he's making a big deal out of this. And I think that the fix to this could be easier than a lot of people maybe realize. Like, all they have to really do, I think, is have these little instances, your little slice of the game that you're on with the 11 other players that are with you. They just need to make these in a way that makes some level of sense, to where the range of characters around you isn't enormous. You shouldn't have an instance where there's a level 40 character beside a level 3 character. It just shouldn't exist. You should have that instance be, there's a level 32 or 35 character and a level 43 character with the level 40 character. You know what I mean? You shrink the pool, and then his concern doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. The only time it then matters is if you take a level 40 character and you invite the level 3 character to your team, or level 5 character or whatever. Then it matters for a little while, because that level 5 character can maybe more easily, in this example, tear through the mobs that you as the level 40 character is having a hard time with, because the way that the matchmaking works. And to say that that's an impossible thing to, well, first of all, you're inviting that on yourself. So you're creating the problem on purpose at that point. But let's say it's still a concern anyways. You can just fix that concern, fix that problem by making some slight tweaks to how the level scaling works within a party, to where if you have too big of a gap between two different characters that are playing together, that it gets a little bit harder for the lower level character, while it doesn't get that much easier for the higher level character, to keep people from, I don't know, cheesing, a boss or a certain encounter or mob or something like that. But I hope that makes sense. Like, it's not that hard for a problem to fix. All you do is you narrow the range of what people are instanced together, whether it be by their like power level, like whatever, or like however Blizzard like looks at it to like determine internally how powerful a character is, or whether it be by literal level. If you instance it in a much smaller like range, the problem's solved. It's not a problem anymore. It's literally a non-issue at that point.
It has its advantages because it's very inclusive, but I think it just doesn't feel good as the character. So how do you get stronger? Well, most of the power that you're going to gain as you play the game is going to come from items. So if you're playing through the game and you find like a legendary item, especially one with an ability you didn't have that is very good for your class and character, your power level is going to go up a lot in some cases. But then you're going to level up, and your power level is going to drop. And then it's going to drop again after another level. It's going to drop again after another level. But then you find another item, you know? So it feels very weird. I don't like hate it, but I don't like it. And I do think it is a very rigid base system in the game that is going to cause a lot of problems over time.
Yeah, I would just say that this, if they've designed this game with any kind of intelligence at all, this is something that they can tweak. They can make it work on some type of a range scale. They can tweak some of the numbers. I would say that if we're 6 months to a year in the game, and like you're still like you're having this issue with it, I think then it's like then you should probably maybe start having some concern or like wondering like what the heck's happening. But we're just talking about open beta and something that's likely a changeable thing that kind of I would say like falls in that same category as like class balance. Like it's another balance factor that they can kind of tweak on their at a whim if they want to. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
And yeah, the forced multiplayer thing too. It might be pretty annoying. I think you're going to see a lot of griefing.
I like it.
Again, another reason why I wouldn't really play.
Saw no griefing. Never was a problem once.
Itemization. Itemization is a bit too simple in terms of like the item level system. I wish there was more complexities, and in some cases there are too far of complexities. Like if we just quickly go through the system
it's
here,
too simple, but it's too complex.
Okay, what do we got here? Basic skill damage, vulnerable damage, damage to Kripparrian enemies, core skill damage. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. But you're going to see some things like, oh, by the way, here's another bad one for the UI. You want to see actually what your stats are? You have to click on materials and stats, which always defaults to plants. And then you have to click this button.
Okay, that's not terrible UI design. That's just they need to change the default page. That's not so the UI the UI is actually good. It's just they defaulted to the wrong page. And again, if you want to see your actual stats, you have to click on the materials and stats button. But you can see your actual stats here, like the like baseline stats that matter, and you have to do a button click that should have just defaulted to this page. Maybe whatever the page you clicked last was, or whatever. Even that, it's just a button. Like it's not a terrible designed UI. It's just it's such a basic thing. He overreacted. He overreacts a lot, it seems.
Which shows your gold and your active buffs, and then you have to scroll down. So things like overpower chant.
But yeah, you have to scroll down because they're giving you stats for everything. This is the, hey, I'm getting deep into the weeds of my character. So this is for like his type of like player, right? Which is fine, to where you can like look through and see the stats of your character, and you're complaining about having to click a button for stats. You're saying it's a terrible UI because you just had to, like, they didn't default you to the stats instead of the materials. And then they're complaining about scrolling because they're giving you too many stats to look at, I guess.
You have a 3% chance to do like a crazy large hit, and it's based off of your life plus fortify plus the overpowered damage bonus. And on multi-hit skills, it overpowered damages every single hit of the skills, so it's fast hitting. Low damage skills that multi-hit is incredibly good, so you can stack health, and even though it's 3% chance, you're gonna do like no damage, no damage, no damage, but then every 10th or 30th hit, you're gonna do like 30 times damage. It's so confusing to really get a grasp for some of these mechanics, but in other
it's kind of funny because like you see a lot of people talk, man, this game's just way too simple. Like there's no depth to it. Like this is a dumbed down like Diablo 3, man. Like this is no Path of Exile. And then like on the other hand, you look at stuff, you're like, man, this game is just so complex. Like it's got all these stats, and like all these stats mean all these different things. And like, man, this game is really complex, man. But see, this is the beauty of it. Okay. If you don't care about that stuff, you're not that type of player, it's never going to matter to you. It doesn't. I could have, like, you could have 95% of players, 90% of players not care about this and never visit the screen, and it affects them none. Because those players might just have fun playing the actual game design of the game, and the fighting and the graphics are so good on this game. You're going to have a stupid number of players that Just simply roll a character, spec some skills, find some good gear, have fun, and have no problem rinsing and repeating. No problem rinsing and repeating at all. And then you're going to have the 5 to 10% of players, or whatever number it is, that like get into the weeds some, and then a smaller percentage of players like really deep dive in and like they start to learn like all these different things. And oh my God, how can I optimize this one stat? And those dudes may be gods at PvP, and that's fine because they took all this extra time to learn it, but you didn't have to learn it to get through the game, to beat the game, to have fun.
Other cases, the itemization is like item power. What is item power? Well, an item...
Okay, I'm assuming he's going to say it. Item power is just a combination of all of these things and some calculation that it does to determine how powerful that item is. It's an at a glance stat that lets me see, oh, this item power is 334. This item power is 120. Like, okay, like the amount of stats that these two items have on them are vastly different from each other. But then you look down further and see what are those specific stats and make your determination on if you want the item then.
Has an item power. It's kind of like an item level, but it doesn't work like item level in Diablo 2 or Diablo 3 or Path of Exile. It seems like, and again, it's debate, but it seems like if an item of a certain item power drops, it's like an item level, but the stats that spawn on the item are always of that item level. What does that mean? So you can have like 3 int on boots if they're like level 3 or something like that. Just an example. But if you find item level 373 boots, it's always going to be a range of 11 to 18, as you can see on the item. Always. You're never going to have a stat higher than 18 or lower than 11. It's always the top bracket of stats. You might be thinking, hey, that's pretty good. That means items are generally pretty good. Yes, items are generally pretty good. And that is a good thing in a way, but the item level scales with your level. So if you find those perfect gloves with the perfect stats, with the perfect imprinted mod of additional Hydra, and then you fast forward 3 levels, yeah, you need to find that exact same item again, with the exact same stats, with the exact same power or imprinted power, because it's going to have marginally more stats. I feel like this game is going to be constantly finding the same items you already have as you level. And that's only really solved by having an extremely fast and cheap journey to maximum level, which, honestly, I also hate. I really like the idea of grinding out levels and having that time spent in the game be meaningful. So,
but see, now he's talking about min-maxing. And again, like, you know, this is kind of like, this is like where he lives in the game, and that's fine. Like, this is a good concern for him, I think. But it's not most players. Most players aren't going to like look to min-max a character, meaning like they're going minimum one stat, maximum of another. Okay. All right, we're gonna end up calling a stream here pretty soon. Here in a moment. But anyways, you're minimizing one stat, maximizing another, maximizing certain skills to work certain ways, right? And I'm trying to like pick up my train of thought again. So what he's saying is like you'll get an item, and then the items are like all these uniques, they're all random stats, right? But if you were to, if the unique is, it's not like the item has a predetermined level to it. The level of the item is based off of your character. So the items that you find, it's not like you can like skip ahead in a game and get like higher level items because you're fighting above your weight, because those items that you're getting are based on the level that you are, not where you are and what you're fighting, if that makes sense. So his complaint is, oh, well, if I find an item I really like at level 96, but then I get to level 100 and I know in my head I might actually be able to get this same item but just a little bit better, and then that's going to drive him crazy because he knows that it's actually technically possible to get an item a little bit better. I mean, I understand where he's coming from with it, and that maybe it's a concern for like the 0.01% of players that like really want to make sure they have the absolute best gear. But is it a problem? It's actually it's if anything better to work the way that it does for a super large majority of the players that are playing the game. And almost there's going to be such a small percentage of people that care about this that I don't think it's even going to be on Blizzard's, or shouldn't be anyways, on Blizzard's radar, because it's just not going to matter. Having that extra +1 possibility on your strength stat because you could have got the item at level 100 instead of level 95. What's, you know, I don't understand what the big deal is. Again, if you're trying to min-max a character and like competitive PvP or something, maybe, but if that's you, then you should also just be willing to spend the time to grind. Anyways, I think that's where we're going to leave this. I have bookmarked these other ones. We'll do those in a future stream. Of course, it started to autoplay.
69 here.
Just to catch up with the final chats. Name one game where you won't have to re-equip your character as you level up. Exactly. So what he wants to find that item at level 3 and never have to re-equip it again because he doesn't want to have to find another item. Yeah, like his thing is like, well, if I find it at level 90, then I feel like I'm going to have to find it again at level 100 because it could technically be a tiny bit better at level 100 versus level 90. Those boots I got at level 3 aren't just as good when I'm at level 20. Game sucks. Yeah. I've never cared about min-maxing. Even if you do care about min-maxing, you have to be really extreme on your level of care for min-maxing for that to matter. All right, here, let me kill the recording. Like people who will keep remaking the same rune word in Diablo 2 until they get the perfect stats. Yeah. Moldy said bye. See you, Moldy. The name of the game is to find those legendary affixes and turn them into an upgrade. Find that godly rare item and put it on those. Yeah, and usually you're going to wait until you're level, like, close to max level for that. You know what I mean? At least for your final gear. You know what I mean? So anyways, I appreciate you guys hanging out. We actually had a lot of new people popping on Twitch, which was interesting and fun. A couple trolls, but like some new people popped in there. And we'll work on getting this worked into some form of video content to put out on the channel, on the new channel. So I appreciate you guys hanging out. It was super fun today. Let me know your thoughts of how everything went in the Discord. Give me some feedback, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
How are you guys?